Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Thursday, October 13th Planning Commission meeting. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with roll call.
Commissioner Powers? Here. Commissioner Hauge?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Woodward?
Here.
Commissioner DeMattei?
Here.
Commissioner Dahlgren? Here. Commissioner Herzog?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. Today's Planning Commission meeting is open to in-person attendance and may also be observed online through the Placer County website. In an effort to encourage the public to engage in the process, our public comment for this meeting will be offered in person and remotely. Citizens who wish to comment virtually today should be prepared to comment via the Zoom platform. You can click on the link on the Planning Commission homepage. Make sure your microphone is muted. You may also call in using toll-free numbers. Those numbers are 888-788-0099, or you can call 877-853-5247. Please enter the webinar ID number, which is 839-3286-2885, and press star 6 to mute yourself. If you'd like to make public comment virtually, please raise your hand with the hand icon at the bottom of the page. If you're calling in, please press star 9 to raise your hand. Please be prepared to speak at the time I open public comment, which could be matters not on the agenda, a consent item, or a timed item. If attending in person today, we kindly request that once you have commented on your item, return to your seat or leave through the exit-only door to accommodate for physical distancing and to allow others to provide in-person comment. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes to comment. Thank you for your patience as we work to preserve the safety and health of all meeting participants. I'll go ahead and invite EJ to share the Planning Director's report.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Commission. EJ Valdi with the Planning Services Division. So it's always good to start out with some good news. So this morning I just want to introduce one of our newest planners. It's probably the best favorite part of my job is hiring new staff. Jared Peters. Jared? Where are you? There you are. Jared, he's our newest assistant planner. I believe working on Chris's team. He comes from the Bay Area. A graduate from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I'm not going to hold that against him since I went to Cal Poly Pomona. But
I'm sorry to hear that.
But we still brought him on. Anyway, welcome, Jared. We're glad to have you on board as part of our team. As you all may know, I am going to be retiring here at the end of this, or the beginning of December. After 26 years at the county, 30 years of public service, I've decided that it's a great time to step away. I get to do it with my wife, so we're really looking forward to it. Our agency director is already taken steps as far as the transition. He's made an appointment of our interim planning director. That's going to be Christopher Schmidt. And Chris, down the back. Chris, as you know, has been here over 20 years. You've all worked with him for many, many years. So I think it's going to be a seamless transition. The recruitment for planning director, that went out last week. So I think that closes next month sometime. So I think you guys are in good hands. It's been a pleasure working for this commission. You guys have such diverse backgrounds. I'm glad we finally have a full commission. It took a while to get everybody on board, but it's been absolutely just great working with you and your insight on these projects and really looking at what we've accomplished over the years. So much appreciation for all of you. And then my staff, I gotta say, I have the probably hardest working and most talented planning staff or team that anybody could have worked for. It's amazing what they've accomplished. A lot of these folks I've worked with 20, 30 years, and then, like Jared, folks that are coming on, they get to, enter the system with some great mentorship. And, I think these folks are going to go a long way. So just thank you and my gratitude to the planning staff. And then council, thank you. Appreciate them keeping me out of hot water all the time. Making sure we, cross the T's, dot the I's. I really appreciate all, your help over the years. So anyways, I want to get through that real quick. I can get on with normal business. Coming up, our next, let me talk about board meetings first. We had a couple board meetings since we last met. On September 27th, the board took up the Gateway Village residential project. The board approved that project as recommended by your commission. Just this past week, or on Tuesday, the board approved the Auburn Equipment Rezone project. That was the 2 acres in North Auburn. And so that was as recommended by your commission as well, no changes. And then upcoming planning commission schedule, let's see, October 27th, that's the next meeting date. We're trying to bring forward the Regional University, the first phase small lot map. We're doing everything we can to get that on the agenda, so hopefully we can make it. We also have an appeal of a cell tower up in the Forest Hill area, AT&T cell tower, so that's on the agenda, and I think there's an extension of time. So that meeting's in Auburn, and then the next meeting is November 10th, that agenda to be determined. We may ask the commission to do a special meeting because we do have some projects that we're trying to wrap up before the end of the year, maybe later in November or before the Thanksgiving holiday, since we only have one meeting in November and one meeting in December, so stay tuned for that. So with that wraps up my report.
Okay. Yeah, don't go anywhere. We know that this is a really important meeting for you, EJ, and there's people here that would like to say a few words, and I'm gonna have Clayton kind of lead us through that.
Thank you. Yeah, so as EJ mentioned, he is ending his tenure as the planning director in mid-December, but this is his last planning commission meeting, so I wanted to say a couple things about him first. Some people come to their jobs here at the county, do what is asked of them, and leave. There are other people here, though, that treat this job as something more, that convey a desire to make this county something better, a better place for its residents. Without a doubt, EJ falls into that latter category. Just a quick background on him. The county has been fortunate to have his guidance for 26 years. He came over from Madera County in 1996. Started as associate planner, worked his way up through the ranks, senior planner, supervising planner, then environmental coordinator before planning director. Planning director for the past 8 years, where he currently oversees 28 positions and an approximate budget of $10 million. He also spent 6 years as a district aide during that time. He's been the lead in the planning division during periods of unprecedented growth in our county. Since he started as a planning director, the county has been the top of all counties in the state in terms of new building permits for 1,000 homes, rates of business growth, and you can see it all around in terms of all of the growth that we're seeing in West Placer. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that EJ had a hand in facilitating much of that growth and shepherding both short-term and long-term planning during those times. He's set up the planning division well into the future. As he's mentioned in his speech, there's a phenomenal staff here that he's put in place. He's supervised that planning side of development, and he's had a large hand in a lot of those big developments that you're seeing in West Placer, Placer Vineyards, Riola Vineyards, Regional University, and Placer Ranch, all of those which are going to result in thousands of homes coming into the county in the next decade. It was his steady hand and his eye on balancing development with responsible, practical growth that put Placer County in such the strong position that it is now. The dedication and long hours, many of those on the weekends that he spent in this position, show quite plainly somebody who has genuinely cared about the success of this county, and who has dedicated their career to that effort. So just a side note, EJ and I do a lot of work together in terms of staff report review, legal notice review, and more often than not, I'm getting emails from him on Saturdays and Sundays, crazy times during the evenings, and it's just, this has not been a 40-hour week for EJ, and it hasn't been, I think, probably the whole time that he's worked at the county. I've been lucky to have worked with him for 6 years, to call him a mentor and a friend. And I can say that his retirement's going to leave extremely large shoes to fill at this county, although I know there is certainly a lot of great staff that's up to the task. The county's losing not only a great employee, but a wealth of knowledge and leadership. But as I've mentioned, he's given a lot to the county, and it's time for him to enjoy some well-deserved family time without interruptions over pressing development issues or staff reports that have to get out or legal notices that have to get out. Maybe he also will have some time for some fishing trips too. So I wanted to thank him for his service and wish him and Terry the best in their retirement. And also I believe there's some others here that have some things they want to say too. So thank you, EJ.
All right. Supervisor Jim Holmes, I believe you had some words you wanted to share.
Thank you, Chair Herzog and Planning Commission members. What I have to say is everything that was just said, I have to agree with. There was so much that you did. But personally, for me, this is a tremendous loss. When I first took office in 2005, 18 years ago, if you believe that, I was just a rookie. But EJ worked with Supervisor Bill Santucci, who was one of the most gentlemen of all the supervisors I've ever met. Very, very polished, kind, and he set an example for how we should conduct ourselves as county supervisors, and I took that very seriously. And that example rubbed off on EJ. I'm sure that he picked up on that, and he's been that kind of a gentleman with sophisticated diplomacy and workmanship with his job. And I value the times that throughout the last 18 years that, we worked with EJ on projects. He presented them to us, gave me information. But what I value mostly is we generally have monthly meetings where we could have frank discussions and kind of go through therapy sometimes about what's going on in Placer County. So the landscape for me is changing dramatically with EJ leaving, as well as his wife, Terry, because she was worked in the office for as long as I was there. So anyhow, it's I'm with great sorrow that he's leaving, but I applaud him for being able to do that and congratulate him on his retirement and just wish him the well. And I know he still lives in my district, although I don't, but but we will run into each other over the next few years. So anyhow, I just want to congratulate him and thank him for his service.
Thank you. We also have Supervisor Wygan, and he's online, and we'll go to him next.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So EJ and I our careers are almost identical in terms of time. EJ came a few months after I started on the Board of Supervisors, and now he has the audacity to leave a month earlier than I am. So mostly at this moment, I'm angry, but I'm going to deal with it, EJ, and everything's going to be fine. So I'm sure we'll get along going forward. But I do have a question. What does EJ stand for?
Maybe not everybody. Ernest Jr. I'm not really a junior, but it's Ernest Jr.
I just thought the world should know that. So Clayton, Clayton did a remarkable job of highlighting your career here in Placer County and digging even deeper down into the real person and public servant that you've been. and Jim as well. But I've worked with you almost my whole career, as I mentioned. I've worked with your wife my whole career. And both of you retiring is going to be a huge loss. The public should really know that in the county, generally speaking, our staff has been extraordinary, genuine public servants. If you look at the career out in Cedra in planning, the challenges that we've addressed over the last 28, 27 years are astounding. But EJ came onto the scene right after the county had adopted its general plan. So there was huge amount of energy and activity and controversy in implementing it. He was here during the first update of the sunset plan, and then just recently it's more current rework. But Placer Ranch project, he was here during the interesting time when we had a different approach to dealing with our local Indian tribes, the United Auburn Indian Community, and we, through the planning process, were able to work with them to have a project that complied with the county's land development standards, which was really unheard of at the time in the country. Just amazing amount of growth. And EJ, you're finishing with just a tremendous contribution and an incredible foundation for those who follow you and I to build upon. And Placer is a tremendously special place. And I wish you and Terry the best of luck. And I hope we're not strangers and we can get together and maybe do a little fishing together now that we'll both have some extra time. So from top and the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. And I can't emphasize enough the contribution that you've made to the county. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I don't think I'm going to let Robert off the hook that quick. When I first came to the county back in '96, I moved to Lincoln, and it was a 2-lane road going from Rosedale out to Lincoln. There were 7,000 people. Of course, Robert was there a lot longer. Flatlands, ag lands, rolling foothills. I always wondered, what the heck did that District 2 supervisor do? There's nothing to do out there. But it didn't take long for me to realize that, what a great steward of the environment Supervisor Wygan is. I appreciate all your efforts supporting us, preserving all the great resources out there. So thank you, Robert.
Thank you, EJ.
I want to invite my fellow commissioners here to share a word if you'd like.
Yeah, Richard Johnson. The first time I met EJ was probably in '96, and he had just completed a special training course. And I don't remember the particular meeting that I met him at, but I think you were relatively new to the county at that time. Yeah. But I was impressed because the county had sent you to a course that really worked out for you well, I must have, because, you've been a very strong planning director, and maybe the strongest from what I've seen. I've been here since 2007, and so I've seen a lot of the county planning commission since then, but, EJ, I think, has been right on top as a planning director, so thank you for being such a good worker for the county.
Thank you.
I know I'm relatively new, but I just wanted to thank you for all the support and help that you've given me as I've started this journey as a planning commissioner, giving me the confidence and information that I needed. And you just seem like an all-around great guy, so I hope I see you out there in the woods sometime backpacking.
Sounds good.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for helping me transition from being on that side of the dais over to this side. Also, I've been very impressed how you have been responsive to this planning commission over the years with your staff and addressing our issues. And good job. And having been around for a long time, just shepherding this general plan forward, following that plan has been a tremendous success, even though you went to the wrong Cal Poly. Thank you.
Yeah.
EJ, 20 months ago when I got here, I didn't have any idea what a county staff did. I had no idea about how a county ran. It's just the nature of my background and that sort of thing. I don't think there's anybody that I leaned on more than you, and I deeply appreciate the work that you did. And all of these tributes have made it clear how much you have devoted your life to this county and to just making things better, and how hard you have worked. Clayton's in particular, his comments, he knows better than anyone how hard you worked, and yet you took the time to kind of bring me along and explain, what you did and how you did it and everything else that went into it. So thank you for that. More than anything else, though, of all these tributes, I think they're great. What has impressed me the most is how you have built a team to follow you. You really are a great teacher. And that's really, really important, because you leave this county so much better because you bring along people like Chris and others to build this, to keep this county going. So thank you very, very much for that, and for what you did for me as well.
I think everybody said everything I wanted to say, but so I'll keep it short. Just thank you for your guidance, being a friend and everything.
Yeah, are you tired of standing?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot
Yeah.
more people in the audience who could probably share, EJ, but I appreciate you and echo a lot of the words that were shared. I think I'll just add that it's very inspiring to see people stand up and want to share and talk about your career. And I hope that someday, all of us could experience something that you experienced here and will continue to experience. We're going to celebrate a little bit later together and continue to torment you later too. But your leadership is obvious. And there's no question that you care. There's no question that the care that you have for this county is there. And that is impressive. So thank you for your work. Is it okay if we get on with the rest of the meeting now? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to keep a good tight schedule, and you totally blew that out today.
We got one more. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Chairman, and Commissioner, your Procedure Director, I apologize for being a little late.
That's okay.
I'm not going to repeat everybody's comments, obviously. I just want to echo, just being here 4 months, I've never seen a more dedicated staff in this county and in places I've worked. And only that's really a reflection of EJ and how he presents himself to commissions, board, staff, and his support to me. So I really want to thank him in front of you folks as well, because he's been really dedicated to this county and has been great support to me as well. So I just really want to make sure you knew how I felt about him as well. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, David. Yeah. Thank you for those words.
Yeah, just a heartfelt thanks for all the comments. A little bit overwhelmed right now, but appreciate that. And just to assure you guys are in really good hands with David and Chris Schmidt as interim planning director, and thanks to all our colleagues in CEDRA. It's not just planning. It takes this entire army to get done what we get done. So without that, I don't have the success I have, and the team doesn't have the success. So anyway, thank you.
All right. Yeah. Right, yeah. All right, and congratulations, Jared and Chris. We're looking forward to your new role. We're going to go ahead and open up public comment for matters that are not on the agenda. Anyone here in person wish to speak on any items that is not on our agenda today? And then anyone online? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close public comment for matters that are not on our agenda. We're going to move to consent. Is there anyone from the commission here, any commissioners wish to pull consent agenda item? Anyone in the public? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a first and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner Powers. Commissioner Powers? Aye. Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
I abstained due to absence from the last meeting.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our first timed item, Riola Vineyard Specific Plan, Frisvold Rezone Vesting Tentative Subdivision Map and Development Agreement. Members of the public may now raise their hand, press star 9 if you're calling in. And we'll have Nick Trufillo, Senior Planner, present on this item.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Commission. Nick Trufillo with the Planning Services Division. So the applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission continue this item to an open date due to the recent internal staff changes and also to allow additional time to review the development agreement. Staff is in support of this continuance request.
Okay, so we have a request for continuance with the commission's wishes.
Granted.
Do we need to make a motion?
So for this, we should actually open it up to public
Oh,
comment.
correct.
Okay.
If there is public comment on the continuance request, and then the commission can make a motion.
Okay, let me open up for public comment on this item. Anyone here in person? Okay, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission.
I'd make a motion to continue this item to an off-calendar date.
Second.
First and a second, we'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Powers? Aye. Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, time is good. So we're going to move on to our second timed item, grading ordinance update, informational item. Members of the public may now raise their hand, press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for public comment. Rebecca Tabor, Engineering and Surveying Deputy Director, will be presenting on this item.
Commission, good morning. Rebecca Tabor. Nice to be here this morning. This is an informational item I'd like to present to you. And let me move that on. Okay. Informational item this morning. The grading ordinance is an ESD ordinance that we haven't updated in about 16 years. So, but first, let me let you know that I have Michelle Lewis here. She's an associate engineer in ESD. Also Eric Griffin, ESD, and Josh Hunsinger, the Ag Commissioner. Online, we have Ed Staniforth. He is a senior engineer with ESD, and I have a great team that works on the grading program, and so they're here to support and help answer any questions today. So 16 years ago, we last made some technical changes to the grading ordinance. The full title is the Grading, Erosion, and Sediment Control Ordinance. It's Chapter 15, Article 15.48 of Placer County Code. The purpose of the ordinance is to regulate grading of property within unincorporated Placer County to safeguard life, health, and property. It's also to avoid pollution to watercourses and to ensure consistency with the general plan and county ordinances. So the purpose of our update today is to clarify some grading permit requirements. It's really a limited scope, but we have been collecting some clarifications and changes over the years that really need to go into effect. Also, we want to give farmers some regulatory relief from some state water quality requirements. I'll get more into that detail in a minute. We want to also provide more county oversight over problematic grading activities. And then there's some other administrative technical fixes. So just to pause for a moment, I wanted to cover when is a grading permit required. I thought that might be useful. I didn't have a slide for it, but what activities require a grading permit? So earthwork of 250 cubic yards or more, cuts or fills that are 4 feet vertical depth or greater, earthwork that disturbs more than an acre of land, flat land, or 10,000 square feet of disturbance if the slope is greater than 10%. Those all require a county grading permit. Also, retaining walls over 4 feet in height or subject to a surcharge, so have a load on them. A private vehicular bridge requires a grading permit. The Tahoe Basin has some more strict requirements. So we also require grading permit for 3 cubic yards of earthwork or more in the Tahoe Basin, cuts 4 feet in vertical depth, fills 3 feet or more vertical depth, again in the Tahoe Basin, and then cuts or fills in the basin cannot exceed 200 square feet of area, much more strict in the basin, and any vegetation clearing over 1,000 square feet in area, also subject to a grading permit in the basin. Countywide, if there's any grading or drainage changes that obstruct a watercourse, creek, wetland, or water body, that is subject to a grading permit as well. So just quickly to kind of get an idea of our workload, grading permit activity over the past, 5-6 years here. Generally, we see over 200 grading permits countywide a year. In the blue line is the total grading permits we process. Past 2 years, last year was 317. This year, when we put this graph together, it was about a month ago, 260. So I think we're on par to be over 300 again this year. And then the orange is just to show complaints, grading or drainage related complaints. And it's only the Auburn office. We get the most in the Auburn office, and that's pretty steady. We're kind of about 65 a year. So keeps us pretty busy. So the proposed updates, I did want to organize, or let you get a little organized on the staff report. There's an attachment A that includes the text changes only that we're proposing with this update. So the bold underlined text is the new text. Strike through is proposed to be eliminated. That's attachment A. And if you look at attachment B, you get the full ordinance with those changes incorporated, so you can see the context and get all of the ordinance, not just the pieces we're changing. So updates include adding embankment and excavated pond requirements. In the past, we've had a handout, probably for the last couple decades, at our front counter, where we would say if you're gonna do a pond and it's a certain size, or it has an embankment, you need a grading permit, and here's what you need to do. So we've incorporated that into the ordinance now. We've clarified when drainage alteration causes a violation. It was fairly broad, how it was written, and we wanted to define it to where there's a detrimental impact as a result of that grading and to a neighboring property, and also if it's impacting a public roadway. So we did have some code that was inadvertently admitted with the 2020 PCCP update. And there's 6 lines of the grading ordinance that just inadvertently got eliminated. They had to do with defining some exemptions for grading permits. So putting that back in. Fee relief for private vehicular bridge emergency repair. Over the years, there's been times where a property owner has a bridge they need to construct to their home, or maybe there's 2 or 3 private properties that have a private bridge and they need to reconstruct it because fire services can't cross that bridge. So we propose the fee to be half of our typical grading permit fee, processing fee. And it's similar to what is allowed in county code for failing septic systems. just so the hardship on the small private property owners is not as hard for them to bear. And then clarify some Tahoe Basin grading permit requirements, in particularly Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board doesn't review our grading permits. We do that on their behalf, and so we're taking out that agency from having to review. Also, in the eastern placer, we want to include the restriction of grading in snow areas for all snow areas, not just within or east of the Sierra as it was previously written. So we're including serene lakes because they also have saturated and snow-covered areas between October 15th and May 1st. So it would follow that the same restriction applies. Easy one, we do electronic grading permit processing now, so we're taking out the requirement for hard copies. Special inspection requirements for retaining walls, sound walls, private vehicular bridges, and dam embankments. These are features that are private, and they require an engineer to review. So we're adding that a special inspection is needed by a professional engineer. And that would be part of the grading permit that we review. And we get it before we accept the improvement as complete. So agricultural operations, this one is maybe where the more substantive changes are to this update. An updated definition for agricultural operations, and then also specifying when, if, a grading permit is required for these operations. So in the past, the current ordinance is written with a very broad statement that really just says, grading for agricultural operations is currently exempt unless it endangers people or obstructs drainage. So if an activity is agricultural related, it's exempt. We wanted to, kind of twofold, define what we mean and what is really exempt, so that the farmers and folks that are doing agricultural operations have more guidelines to follow, so that they can say that they are following the county's ordinance, and it gives them some regulatory relief from the state requirements if the county has a more robust ordinance. So that's part. We also want really to give the county more ability to address problematic grading if it truly isn't ag-related. So the agricultural operation definition in the ordinance, we are proposing to now call it bona fide agricultural operation. The current definition is on the left, and then the proposed definition is on the right. So we're looking, I'll kind of look to the one on the right, that the agricultural commissioner will determine, and in writing, state that the farmer or the activity is bona fide ag, and so it means the conservation or protection of land for the purposes of commercial growing or harvesting crops from soil, including forest operations, the raising of plants at nurseries, the raising of fowl or animals for the primary purpose of commercial enterprise or conducting agricultural research. So we did update this definition in coordination with the Ag Commissioner, and reviewed this at the Ag Commission both in June and then July public meetings. We did a pretty robust discussion with the Ag Commission and incorporated some comments that they, some good feedback to arrive at this proposed definition. So for an agricultural exemption, the other part of this is we have added these guidelines. To be exempt from obtaining a county grading permit, there needs to be the written approval from the Ag Commissioner, it's bona fide ag, and the grading must meet these six criteria. So the first, the grading must be exclusively for agricultural purposes. not associated with a building, for instance, that requires a building permit, or a commercial access road, or a pond that requires a grading permit. The grading should not be within 30 feet of a water body or water course. No resulting cuts or fill slopes should be greater than 2 to 1, and the slope should be 20% or less. BMPs that are for agricultural sediment and erosion control, as approved by our Ag Commissioner, should be in place and followed. And dust control measures should be implemented consistent with the right to farm ordinance and in compliance with the local air district requirements. We are very sensitive to comments from our Ag Commission, and we didn't want to require existing farmers, farm operations to have to get a grading permit. That's not our intent. So another change that we're proposing is to include that if there are crop fields that need to be turned over, which is a normal routine operation, that would also be exempt from having to get a grading permit. One other point, the Ag Commission expressed an interest in communicating to their farmers that the county has updated, once we go to the board, that we have updated and adopted these changes. So in response to that, we plan to have updates on the website, the Ag Commission website, the CEDRA website. We'll work with our PIO office and get a notice pushed out, and also going to look into getting notices mailed with the annual assessor tax, property tax, to those within a Williamson Act area, that hopefully we can get that outreach to those folks in their annual tax bill. Oh, this is the slide. So with that, really, this is an informational item. I'm happy to receive comments, feedback, questions, and really our next steps are to update this ordinance, or bring this update to the Board of Supervisors. End of November is the target at this time.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Did Michelle or Eric have something to say, or should we move to questions from the commission?
Oh, they're just here to support if there's
Okay.
any specific questions, so.
Okay. Any questions at this point?
Yeah, one question. Does an ag operator have to come annually to get the bona fide certification, or is that one time? How does that work?
That would be a one-time, right? That's a one-time working through Josh.
I have a question on special inspection requirements. It said there's going to be some special engineering that's required. You talked about retaining walls and sound walls are going to require some special inspection requirements.
And they do now. Just to expand on that, I'm sorry, did you have more?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. What is it? Is
Okay.
what my question.
Okay, so we do require it now. So if a property owner is putting in a driveway, so it's not part of their structure, but they have a steep lot and they need to do some grading, and they're gonna put in a retaining wall, right? And it's more than 4 feet. That requires a grading permit to be processed through engineering and surveying. We will ask during the review of the grading plan that an engineer provide structural calculations for that retaining wall and stamp the design. And once that's in place, and we do have staff that review, but it's on the private engineer to design and certify that that will be sufficient and safe. So once we approve the grading permit and issue it, the property owner has a contractor construct the improvement. And then to sign off, before we can final that the work has been complete, we want a letter from that professional engineer stating that the retaining wall was constructed to their approved design. So it just certifies that it was constructed properly.
And so under 4 feet, an engineer isn't required.
Correct.
Below 4 feet. Anything over 4 feet, now they need to hire an engineer to do their drawings and approve it, and that hasn't been the case before?
No, this has been the case. One thing we are clarifying in here is there was a little bit of question whether exactly 4-foot retaining wall height, and it's from the bottom of the footing to the top of the
Right.
retained soil, if that required a grading permit or more. And we've determined through the building code, it does not. So you have to be over 4 feet, and then you are required to get a grading permit and provide the calculations. It has always been the case. We're just clarifying to make it more clear. And then the special inspection that we were requiring in practice, we're stating it in the ordinance. So people know.
Good. I'm just glad we're not adding one more cost to someone, and it's just clarifying and defining it better.
Correct.
Thank you. Yeah.
I may have a couple questions. On the first slide that you had there, you showed a road that somebody was digging in. And that looks very similar to a road halfway to Forest Hill. And so if a property owner wants to make access to his property and doesn't understand the ordinance, and goes ahead and builds a road that probably doesn't meet any of the standards, how do you deal with that?
Well, this is an actual, negative example. We threw in this just to show, what you don't want to do. Typically, we hear about these from a complaint. And I believe this one was a complaint received, and we investigate. So that's where we're getting, 60 or so complaints annually. It would be a neighbor or someone that observed the grading activity would call the county. Complaints go to engineering and surveying. We send someone out, take a look. Yes, this definitely requires a grading permit. Next step is to reach out to that property owner or the person doing the grading. We'll often do a stop work notice and actually post it. They have to cease and desist if it's detrimental. And then we follow up with that property owner. We require that they get a grading permit. They have to submit a plan for our review. Depending on the amount of grading, it could require engineered plans. So we don't let them continue until they get a permit issued by our division, and then they can proceed.
Okay, well, thank you. Another question, this one may be kind of simplistic, but, rice farmers have water. And so frequently they are close to streams and that kind of stuff because they got to get the water. But at any rate, what I'm wondering is when they're disking a field, after a while, the levelness of the field kind of gets out of whack and they have to regrade it. Is there going to be a permit requirement or?
No. This is, I don't know if Josh wants to speak to this, but if it's a bona fide agricultural operation, I'll let Josh speak to the ag.
Yeah, good morning. Josh Hunsinger, Placer County Agricultural Commissioner. So Commissioner Johnson, I think the best way I could describe this, and we spent a lot of time trying to break out the different facets, and I think fundamentally to your point, there's two different types of agricultural soil disturbance, if you will. One is that routine cultivation, which I think is more to the type of activity you're describing. And then there's the more intensive, what we would consider grading, which might involve like deep ripping and things like that for the purpose of, say, installing a permanent crop like an orchard or a vineyard. And what we tried to do is kind of break it into those things that we don't really consider grading necessarily. They're just routine cultivation, and we're not really calling that grading per se. I'm just using kind of layman terms and maybe not, this is what the code accomplishes rather than the words. So I apologize, Rebecca, if I'm not describing it. So versus things that are, there's grading that's not exempt. There's agricultural grading that will be exempt. but you have to now talk to me first before it can be exempt, wherein currently you don't have to talk to me, and then we have to unwind some messes in some situations. And then there's things that I don't want to hear about. I don't want to, I don't want to know everything. I don't want to give permission every time somebody, a rice farmer wants to disc their field. That's just unreasonable for them. It's totally outside of my capacity to deal with. And so those more routine activities would be things that are they're just allowed. That's not considered a grading activity per se. That's just routine cultivation of existing field. Now, if someone wanted to get some large dozers and graders out and create a new rice field up to an existing waterway inside of that 30 feet where they're doing major soil disturbance, getting down into depth or building up fill, those kinds of things then would fall under more that grading category where we would have to vet whether it in fact meets those exemption thresholds or not.
Okay. Then maybe one more follow-up. Oftentimes you can tell where a tractor is working in a field because they're surrounded with a dust cloud.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so that's, we do deal with that pretty frequently, and we work with our air pollution control district. We have our right to farm ordinance, which is in Chapter 5 of the county code. Air pollution control district typically has some pretty significant, and in fact, they do have some pretty significant exemptions from what they call their fugitive dust rules. So like, for instance, if a construction site is creating that much dust, they'll have rules in place. They'll have to water the site. They'll have to do some different things, can actually get ticketed or violated if they're creating what they call fugitive dust, which is dust that moves off site. Ag does not have those same restrictions on it. Again, it's just, kind of the nature of agriculture. It does have some pretty significant exemptions that wouldn't apply to other types of uses like a construction site, for instance. The way we address those is through kind of a good neighbor policy. If we receive complaints, we work with both the farmer and the complainant to say, hey, what's going on here? My house is getting completely dusted out. Work with the farmer to see if, hey, maybe you can dust or disc your field or whatever, cultivate your field at a time when the wind's blowing the other way, so it's blowing out into more rice country and not towards the person's house, something like that. We really try to work with it to minimize those impacts to the neighbors while still allowing the farmer to do their work.
Okay, thank you. Let me see one more question. When you're talking about forestry or forest, now a lot of that work is going to be covered with the timber harvest plan.
Correct.
That's put together by a forester and really amounts to a CEQ document as well. It meets the requirements for that. And so we're not talking about regulating in addition to the timber harvest plan?
No, the county really doesn't, to my knowledge, interact beyond the timber harvest plans are typically so comprehensive that they would address those regional water quality control board concerns and different things with, road construction, I think, to my knowledge, are addressed through those timber harvest plans.
Okay, yeah, so sometimes reforestation requires clearance, but it normally doesn't require grading. So that would be not considered either. So in terms of forest, there's probably not, or what would you be dealing with there?
To date, I have had precisely zero interaction with, I guess, grading concerns related to forestry practices. So, I guess we'd cross that bridge when we come to it if we did receive a complaint or something, but, that's not really where our focus has been.
Okay, thank you.
So, you're welcome.
Josh, I have one more question. Sorry. I probably already know the answer, but just to let the general public know. On the grading permits for agriculture, if somebody wants to go rip their property, is it required to get a grading permit if the slope is less than 10%? If I go rip 400 acres to go just move my dirt back because it's been cultivated because of irrigation, does that require a permit if it's flatter ground for me to go rip it 10 feet and then pull that dirt back and plow it?
Yeah, so we would look at the ordinance and say, is this, routine cultivation, or is this something that meets that threshold of what we're considering grading? And the way the system works right now is it does not require a proactive approval. And so what happens in practice is someone will go out and say, hey, I want to plant a new vineyard or something. And they'll go out and they'll do a bunch of work. county will receive a complaint, that'll come to code enforcement, that'll go to engineering and surveying, then they'll call me and they'll say, hey, do you know about that new vineyard being planted on this road over here? And I go, I have no idea. And in cases where something wasn't done correctly, as I think the question came up earlier, it's a lot harder to fix something after the damage is done than it is to have a game plan in place and do things correctly from the get-go. And that's where I think requiring that interaction with my office prior to those activities taking place will hopefully get everything pointed in the right direction, coordinated with engineering and surveying, making sure the person who wants to do the work is knowledgeable and aware of if a permit's required, getting the ag sign off. As I say it, even if it's exempted, you're not exempt from the pollution requirements. And so those best management practices need to be in place. We need to go through that educational process as well. So.
Okay. No, I'm asking because I've done it all my life, out in the middle of nowhere. And now that homes have kind of come into where we're farming and trying to get produce out to people, we do get some complaints that, we're making dust. And I'm like, sorry, it's the nature of the beast. If you want food, I have to make dirt dust. And, but again, it's natural practices for us to go in every 5-6 years, deep rip stuff, plow it back and get that field level again. So we don't have, divots where water's going to collect.
Yeah.
So is that now going to require me to come and talk to you and say, hey, I got to go rip my field this year?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the exact code to tell you. We'd have to work through your exact situation, but that's the whole idea is we're communicating, and the idea would be no, it wouldn't require a permit, but you might need to talk to me and get an email that I can send then to engineering and surveying to say, hey, I'm aware of this. I've informed the farmer of the requirements for best management practices, and I consider it agriculturally exempt.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking in here. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to open up for public comment.
Okay.
And if you stick around, we might have more questions. Okay, so let's open it up to public comment at this time. Anyone here in person wish to speak on this item? Anyone online? No. Okay, we'll close public comment, and it's informational. But is there anything else that came up before we move on to our next?
Yeah, just one thing about informing the agricultural operators is you may want to take a look at brochures, whatever, somehow getting out to the operators to understand they need to be talking to Jeff before they do anything and get that clarification that they're a bona fide agricultural use. So I don't see that really in here, but somehow that probably needs to get out there because I'm sure there's going to be farmers out there starting to cultivate, have no clue they're supposed to be bona fide.
The outreach is important, agreed. I will work with Josh. We'll work closely and get that outreach as best we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our next item. Before we do that, I realized that Mr. Dahlgren's online, and I didn't, I didn't give you a chance to speak to EJ, and apologies for that. If there was something you wanted to say, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it, but.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say, as a new commissioner, I've been so pleased with the staff and how helpful they've been. And being a public sector management consultant for 25 years, I've been very impressed with not just EJ, but the entire staff and how welcoming they've been. So thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, very good. Well, we're going to move on to our third timed item, Granite Bay Montessori School Conditional Use Permit Modification. Members of the public may now raise their hands. Press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until this item presentation is complete. Kara Conklin, Assistant Planner, will be presenting on this item. And we'll probably do, after this one, we'll probably do like a 5-minute break that we can plan for. Is that okay? All right, Kara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Planning Commissioners. Kara Conklin, Assistant Planner with the Planning Services Division. The item before you, can you hear me? I'm back?
Yeah.
Okay. The item before you this morning is a conditional use permit modification for the Granite Bay Montessori School. The 2.2 acre site is located west of Sierra College Boulevard just south of East Roseville Parkway, and the Johnson Ranch subdivision and the Johnson Ranch Commercial Center are directly to the north side of the property where the city of Roseville is located. Really quickly, just so you can kind of see here, the site is developed and with a Montessori school and is landscaped with trees and bushes that kind of surround and provide a natural buffer for the commercial center and residences located on the north, and then Sierra College Boulevard on the east side of the property. Zoning for the site is residential single family, combining agriculture, combining a minimum building site of 40,000 square feet. The project site is kind of in this little pocket. You can see in the yellow, that's Placer County, and then surrounding the north and east side of the property is City of Roseville. And those surrounding zoning uses are single-family residential, commercial, and park and open space to the east. So the project site currently has 9 classrooms with 1 administrative building. It has a courtyard, play structures, play fields. It has a basketball court and has 31 parking spaces and has a site coverage of 14,766 square feet. So just to point out here, this site plan shows what's currently proposed, but I'll just talk about, so over here where the parking lot is, this is actually where the existing play area is right now. There is a shaded lunch structure over here, and they're planning to move it up to the north side of the site in between the 2 buildings over there. And then there is an existing basketball court where the proposed new building is supposed to go. So in August of 1992, the original conditional use permit was approved by the zoning administrator for 3 buildings that totaled 7,000 square feet and included 6 temporary facilities so that the school could kind of get started and get off the ground while building was underway. And at that time, an addendum to the Granite Bay Community Plan was also adopted. Then in May of 97 and May of 2000, they came in for a conditional use permit modification each time to add an additional 1,300 square foot classroom addition, and those were approved by the zoning administrator. Then again, in September 2014, the zoning administrator approved another conditional use permit modification and a variance to allow an additional 2,500 square foot classroom, and then the installation of a modular temporary office structure and a variance to reduce the north side setback to 7 feet. So currently the proposed modification is to add an additional 2,500 square foot classroom building that would have 2 1,250 square foot classrooms, and that is to accommodate an additional 40 students and 4 teachers. The proposal also includes constructing 21 additional parking spaces for staff parking and then to relocate the lunch structure. And this picture here is of the 2,500 square foot classroom building that was approved back in 2014, and that is what the new proposed classroom building would look like. It would be modeled after this building right here. So this is the site plan. This is where the proposed 2,500 square foot classroom building would go. And then this is the relocated lunch structure right in between those 2 classrooms. And then the additional 21 staff parking spaces would go, and this is all on the west side of the lot. So current enrollment capacity is 224 students, and their current enrollment is 195 students with 25 staff. They are proposing with the addition of the classroom to add an additional 40 students, where capacity would be at 264, with an expected enrollment of 237 students and 29 staff. And then the included parking, or the proposed parking, would amount to 52 spaces total for the school. And just a little information on the hours of operation, which are Monday through Friday, 7 to 6:30 p.m., And the school runs about 10 months per year with a small summer program in June and July. And the recommendation before you today is to find the project categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15303C of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 1836050C of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures. And your second recommendation is to approve the conditional use permit modification subject to the recommended conditions of approval contained in the staff report. And I'm available if you guys have any questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, questions for Kara, for staff?
Kara, I just have two questions for you, and they're kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum, and they're both really essentially procedural. My colleagues will probably know the answer to this, but I just don't. I need to be educated on this a little bit. So the first is, we had a whole series of zoning administrator actions, and now it is before us to approve this.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
So it's a little wonky. Back in 1992, they did it a little differently where it went to the zoning administrator. But because this is a conditional use permit modification, we decided that it should probably go before the planning commission.
Okay. That's the first time I've ever heard someone stand at that podium and call something wonky that happened. But I have to say it's probably an apt description. So the second question then is really a good follow-on. So why is this a conditional use permit modification as opposed to a new project?
Because they're just modifying their current use permit to add 40 additional students. So it's just a modification, and obviously, and to construct an additional building. So it wouldn't require a whole new permit for their operation.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, not seeing anything else. Okay, thank you. Is David here?
Yes.
Callie, do you have something you'd like to add to the presentation?
No, I think.
Okay, great. I'm going to open up to public comment at this time. So anyone here in person wish to speak on this item? Anyone online? I paused a little bit because there's a delay for the online folks, so I paused. Okay, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no more discussion.
I have nothing to add to it. I think it's great.
Okay. Seems like we're ready for a motion.
And
Could you put that recommendation slide up there real quick? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks. Otherwise, I'll make it up.
No, we don't want to do that. Thank you.
I'll make a recommendation. You want them done separately?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make a recommendation to find the project categorically exempt from the environmental review pursuant to Section 15303C of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.050C of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class C, new construction or conversion of small structures.
Second.
We have a first and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Powers and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'll make a recommendation to approve the conditional use permit modification subject to the recommended conditions of approval and findings contained in the staff report.
Second.
First and the second is DiMattei.
I have a first from Commissioner Powers and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a short break, a 5-minute break. And I just want to know who here in the audience is expecting to speak or share on an agenda item. Is there anyone here that's hoping to speak today at any point? We've got a few hands. Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to take note of that. We're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll resume in 5 minutes.
Chair, before we take a break, that last item would have appeal rights, so if possible.
Oh, okay,
could you
yeah,
just,
thank you,
include
yes.
the appeal rights in the record.
Very good. That decision of the Planning Commission may be appealed by anyone who appeared at today's hearing and provided comment, or anyone that submitted written comments on this item. An appeal must be filed within 10 days of today's date. It shall be accompanied by a filing fee of $641. Now we'll take a break.
688.
Oh, it went up today, huh? To 688? Okay.
That's what the super.
Okay, we're gonna get going again. We can get people back. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and move on to our fourth timed item, Granite Bay Medical Office Complex, General Plan Amendment, Rezone and Design Site Review Agreement. Members of the public may now raise their hands, press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for public comment, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Callie Kettinger-Cecil, Senior Planner, will be presenting on this item.
All right, good morning, Commissioners and Chairman Herzog. My name is Callie Kettinger-Cecil, Senior Planner with the Planning Services Division. The project before you this morning is a request from RFE Engineering on behalf of property owner Fit Family Development LP for a project named Granite Bay Medical Office Complex. This project proposes a rezone, general plan amendment, and design review. The project site is located on the northwest corner of Berg Street and Douglas Boulevard, shown here in red. Surrounding uses to the north and west are residential, and uses to the south and east are commercial. The site is owned residential single family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, and parcels to the north and the west are under the same zoning designation. The parcel across Berg Street to the east is office professional, combining design corridor, and the parcel to the south across Douglas Boulevard is general commercial, combining use permit, combining design corridor. The land use designation of the site is rural residential, 0.4 to 0.9 dwelling units per acre, as shown in green, and the commercial designated sites are shown in purple. These photos show the existing conditions of the site. The 2.13 acre project site consists of 2 parcels and is currently undeveloped. An ephemeral stream crosses the northern property line and then it crosses the property at the center, exiting at Douglas Boulevard, and a roadside ditch is located along the southern property boundary. The project is proposing the construction and operation of 2 medical office buildings, and here is the site plan. This site plan represents feedback received from your commission at the April 28th hearing. There was a request to reduce the number of buildings and to pull back the buildings a bit further, so this project is now been redesigned to show 2 medical office buildings totaling 13,650 square feet. The project is seeking a general plan amendment to change the underlying land use designation from low-density residential, 0.4 to 0.9 dwelling units per acre, to commercial, a rezone from residential single-family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, to office professional with a combining design corridor, and is also seeking approval of a design review agreement. The project is proposing the construction and operation of 2 medical buildings that would be used for medical services, outpatient services, clinics, allied health services such as speech pathologists, radiologists, etc. I mentioned that the 2 buildings total 650 square feet. This has been slightly reduced from the total square footage of the 4 buildings, which was 13,706. Building 1 would be 6,150 square feet, and building 2 would be 7,500 square feet. Both buildings would be single story, and 78 parking spaces are proposed to serve the project. Additional site improvements include utility installation, grading, an entrance from Berg Street, tree removal, and the project is also seeking a community plan setback in order to place building 1 47.5 feet from the right-of-way of Douglas Boulevard and building 2 35 feet from the right-of-way of Douglas Boulevard, where the community plan requires a setback of 75 feet on the north side of Douglas Boulevard. This project is constructing frontage improvements to both Berg Street and Douglas Boulevard. Berg Street improvements include restriping to match the existing configuration, construction of a 4-foot wide bike lane and a 6-foot wide decomposed granite trail, landscaping and curb and gutter improvements. And on Douglas Boulevard, the project is constructing a 4-foot wide bike lane, 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk, installing landscaping, and also making curb and gutter improvements. This project was reviewed for consistency under the California Environmental Quality Act, and a mitigated negative declaration was prepared. The public review period opened on March 1st, 2022, and closed on March 30th, 2022. Mitigation measures were identified for aesthetics, biological resources, hydrology, noise, cultural resources, and geology and soils. We did receive 8 letters during the public comment period, including letters from residents, the Waterford 2 HOA, residents in the Vio Milano Court development, the Defend Granite Bay Community Association, Defend Granite Bay Community Association, PG&E, as well as the Water Board. The letters from PG&E and the Water Board were form letters that we get for all projects that just discuss their basic standards. But the letters that we received from the residents and the community groups were in strong opposition to the project. Issues raised in those comment letters included tree removal, grading impacts, aesthetics, impacts to property values, land use, community plan consistency, and density. With regards to aesthetics, shown here are renderings of the project and proposed landscaping as viewed from the corner of Douglas Boulevard and Berg Street, as well as from Douglas Boulevard looking north into the site. The buildings are located towards the front of the site, which is consistent with Granite Bay Community Plan Policy 4.2.3, which requires parking to be located behind buildings where possible. The project is also consistent with Community Plan Policy 4.1.4 for scenic roadway, and is also consistent with many goals, policies, and principles of the Granite Bay Community Plan, as discussed on pages 10 through 12 of the staff report. Appendix A of the Granite Bay Community Plan contains specific policies for design elements along Douglas Corridor, and the project has been designed to be consistent with that, including a craftsman-style architecture with incorporation of natural features, including exposed wood beams, the use of neutral earth tones, a single-story building, and low-pitched roof lines. Here is a rendering of Building 1, and as you can see, it is designed to be compliant with that portion of the Granite Bay Community Plan. The project is also proposing landscaping that is consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan in that they are using native or native appearing and drought tolerant species, including wild lilac, oaks, toyon, and manzanita. And because they have pulled back one of the buildings a bit further, there is some additional landscaping being proposed along the project frontage. With regards to tree removal, the project is proposing to remove 117 trees, including 72 oaks. 18 oaks would be retained, including those that are along the northern property line. These oaks do provide an important visual buffer, and we do acknowledge that irrigation and paving on oak roots can compromise their survivability, so a mitigation measure has been established that requires that if any of those trees fail within the first 5 years after they obtain their certificate of occupancy, that they have to enter into a monitoring program to replant those trees. 4 reports related to biological resources were prepared and reviewed for the project, including a biological report prepared in 2014, as well as an update to that report that was prepared in 2020, which was done to determine if any of the existing conditions had changed in the intervening years. An arborist report was also prepared, and we also reviewed a wetland delineation. The reports determined that there's 1.8 acres of foothill woodland, 0.1 acre of disturbed area, which is shown right here, 0.03 acre of ephemeral stream, and 0.01 acre of ephemeral ditch. The reports concluded that the site does not have the potential to contain special status plant species, but did identify potential habitat for nesting birds and raptors, and mitigation measures have been applied accordingly. The project would be converting the on-site habitat of foothill woodland to a non-natural condition, and the project is required to participate in the Placer County Conservation Program to mitigate for the loss of that habitat. In addition, biological mitigation measures include pre-construction surveys, worker environmental awareness training, payment of land conversion fees, and obtaining regulatory permits from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Placer Conservation Authority. 2 acoustical analyses were also prepared for the project, one in 2014 and then again in 2020 as an update to the 2014 study. The noise analysis looked at traffic, noise generated from construction, building equipment noise, and parking lot noise. That report recommended several noise reduction measures, including ensuring that the buildings are located a minimum of 50 feet from the northern property boundary, to install a minimum 6-foot-tall masonry wall along the north and western property lines where the adjacent residential land uses are located, and also establishing construction time limits and requiring that construction equipment be equipped with mufflers or equivalent devices. These mitigation measures ensure consistency with the noise ordinance and the general plan noise element. 2 traffic impact analyses were also prepared for the project, again, one in 2014 and then a new one dated July 29th, 2021. The update was done to reanalyze the project's trip generation as well as to determine whether or not it would be consistent with vehicle miles traveled regulations. VMT is also noted, or vehicle miles traveled is also known as VMT. The analysis showed that the locally serving intersections would continue to operate within the community plan policies for level of service. And these analysis also concluded that as a locally serving non-residential use, the project would actually have the effect of reducing regional VMT. In addition to traffic generated by the project, collision history was also analyzed, and there have been, in a 5-year period, there were 5 collisions. The analysis reviewed collision history and noted that the intersection operates currently at a rate of 0.06 collisions per million entering vehicles, which is lower than the statewide collision rate for similar facilities, which is 0.24 collisions per million entering vehicles. This information is included in order to demonstrate that the intersection does not represent a safety impact. The project would be making required circulation improvements and paying traffic mitigation fees. The project is proposing a 4-foot retaining wall with a 6-foot-tall masonry site wall along the west and north property lines. I do want to take a moment to note that on page 4 of the staff report, it erroneously mentions the eastern property boundary, and it should have mentioned the west. They are proposing a 10-foot-tall total. You may recall when this project was brought to you in April, they were initially seeking a variance because at that point, a 6-foot-tall max was allowed by the zoning ordinance. The zoning text amendment was adopted by the Board of Supervisors on September 13th, and included with that amendment was an allowance for a 10-foot-tall retaining wall fence combination if it's part of the project design and as reviewed by the hearing body. So they are no longer required to obtain a variance, but I do want to point out that they are proposing to put a 10-foot-tall wall along the western and northern property lines. The other thing I want to point out too is it wouldn't be straight across. There would be 2 openings right here. And then at this point, it drops down to a 6-foot-tall wall only. So it would be 10 feet. There's an opening, 10 feet, opening, 10 feet, and then dropping down to 6 feet. The project is requesting consideration of a reduced front setback to allow the buildings to be a little closer to the Douglas Boulevard right-of-way than is currently allowed by the community plan. The project is requesting to allow building 1 to be 47.5 feet from the right-of-way of Douglas Boulevard and building 2 to be 35 feet from the edge of easement of Douglas Boulevard, where a 75-foot setback is normally required. The Granite Bay Community Plan states that the decision-making body can consider a setback reduction in the event that a project is proposing landscaping, building architectural design, and other high-quality design elements to reduce visual impacts, and that whether a setback of less than 75 feet would result in increased setbacks from either adjacent properties or on-site resources and/or conditions, which on balance results in a better overall site planning and design. This project has done those things, and they are requesting a reduction in that setback as allowed by the community plan. The proposed use of medical office buildings is allowed in the office professional zone district. It is staff's understanding that residential uses were explored and ultimately determined to be infeasible. The office use is consistent with the existing office use across Berg Street to the east, as well as the commercial development that's south of the project site. In the scenic design corridor, zoning designation ensures that the design of the buildings would be consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan, the zoning ordinance, and landscape design guidelines. Condition and mitigation measures have been identified to ensure relative compatibility between the proposed project and the adjacent residential uses to the north and west. As noted earlier in the presentation, the project exhibits a number of goals, policies, and principles found within the community plan. Shown here is a section from Chapter 3 that discusses commercial uses within the community plan. And what's important to note here is that it does discuss the intersection of Berg and Douglas and Berg. This does refer to the existing development, but only on the south side of Douglas, because this particular section of this plan was written before the Quarry Ridge office development. However, I've included it here to demonstrate that the intersection has supported commercial uses as recognized by the community plan, and the proposed project would be consistent with those commercial uses. This project has undergone 4 different designs. Here is the first site plan that was submitted in 2014. It had 2 buildings in the northwest corner, as well as 2 entrances, one from Berg Street and one from Douglas, and was proposing 12-foot tall retaining walls in the corner. That project was ultimately denied by the MAC, and the applicant decided to submit a redesign. So the applicant submitted in 2021 this site plan here, which shows 4 buildings and 1 entrance from Berg. I would note that these buildings are a little closer to the landscape setback and Douglas Boulevard than what was brought to you in April. So when we brought this to the MAC, they again had concerns. So the applicant proposed another redesign. Here I'm comparing the 2014 site plan to that site plan that was presented to you in April. It was 4 buildings. These buildings are pulled back a little bit further, maintained the entrance from Berg Street. And based on feedback received from the April 28th Commission hearing, the applicant has redesigned the project and is now proposing 2 office buildings. This building would be pushed back a little bit further from the edge of easement for Douglas Boulevard than was initially proposed with this design. So it is going to be a bit further back. This building would still be 35 feet, which is similar to the previous design. The project is no longer seeking approval of a tentative map. There are 2 existing parcels, and each building would be on each parcel, so no tentative map is required. And because the zoning ordinance allows the 10-foot tall wall, they no longer are requesting a variance. Here, I'm comparing the 4-building landscape plan with the 2-building landscape plan. And as you can see, with the pullback of building 2, there's actually some more room for landscaping. So the landscape plan has been enhanced a little bit compared to the 4-building design. So to compare some of the site features that are different based off the 2-building design, slightly less trees removed, 2 additional trees would be retained. There would be 30 wall-mounted light packs instead of 40. One of the buildings would be set back slightly further at 47.5 feet. And the total square footage has also been slightly reduced from 13,706 square feet to 13,650. As I mentioned before, because the project has changed their project description, the requested entitlements have changed. They're no longer seeking approval of a tentative map and are no longer seeking approval of a variance for the wall. An erratum was prepared for the project to address those changes. No new mitigation measures and no new conditions of approval were identified or imposed, but the erratum has been prepared to address those changes in the project description and site plan. This project has been to the Granite Bay MAC on multiple occasions, including in 2016 when the MAC recommended denial. In July 2021, the MAC recommended that the number of buildings be reduced, that the ephemeral stream that is on site somehow be preserved. They opposed the reduction with the Douglas Boulevard setback and overall felt that the project did not fit in the community. In April 2022, we went back to the MAC. The building sizes were modified, there was fewer parking spaces, and the landscape buffer was increased to be 34 feet from the right-of-way. At that meeting, which occurred on April 6, 2022, the MAC expressed disappointment in the redesign and stated that commercial was not an appropriate site and felt that residential uses should be constructed instead. There was also concerns with neighborhood compatibility, traffic impacts, concerns regarding biological impacts, and the MAC felt that planning staff is biased towards developers. Public comments included concerns about impacts to property values, aesthetics, tree removal, density, and traffic safety concerns. One member of the public prepared a PowerPoint slide showing existing residential development adjacent to roadways and expressed a desire for projects to have a strict adherence to the community plan with no variance, rezone, or amendments. The MAC ultimately voted 4-1 to recommend that your commission deny the project. This project was presented before your commission on April 28th. At that meeting, there was questions about the no net loss law for residential, questions about how drainage would be treated on site, inquiries regarding the retaining wall, a discussion about the community plan setback reduction, the MAC recommendation, and then consistency with the community plan. At the meeting, staff explained that on and off-site flows would be separated and that the walls are necessary for noise attenuation, and furthermore, the zoning ordinance requires a minimum 6-foot tall wall on properties that are adjacent to non-residential uses. And we also noted that other projects in the vicinity had received a setback reduction consistent with the community plan. That project is the Quarry Ridge project, and the project materials for that state that the closest portion of those buildings would range 20 feet to 28 feet from the future edge of Douglas Boulevard and 40 to 48 feet from the back of existing sidewalks. So that is the adjacent project across the street. And then staff also discussed the MAC discussions and community plan consistency. Your commission took action to recommend continuance of the project to allow another redesign and directed the applicant to either propose something else or reduce the number of buildings. With regards to no net loss, that regulation is also noted as Senate Bill 166. And what that bill states is essentially that sites that have been identified by a jurisdiction as those that are necessary to meet your regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA, those sites are the ones that can't be rezoned or have their density changed unless there are written findings that can't be made, or if the jurisdiction has identified other sites in order to maintain the number of sites that are required for RHNA. So what this slide is showing here is where the project is located, shown here in the red. And then these properties are the ones that are identified in the housing element as those within the Granite Bay community that can count towards the county's RHNA, which is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. So because this project is not one of those identified, it would not be inconsistent with that state law. Though the MAC has recommended denial on several occasions, the application materials, the mitigated negative declaration, as well as the analysis prepared in the staff report demonstrate that the project is an appropriate fit for the site. The M&D in staff report identify and discuss the key goals, policies, and principles that are identified in the Granite Bay Community Plan. And mitigation measures have been identified to reduce potential impacts. The proposed medical office use building would be consistent with the adjacent development that's to the south and the east. And the project has undergone significant redesigns to address community feedback as well as feedback from your commission. I have not received any written correspondence for today's item. I have received correspondence for the previous times that this project has been before the MAC, as well as when this project came before you in April. Before today, I have not received any written correspondence. I did receive one phone call this morning from a member of the community who felt that the changes were immaterial and mentioned that the noticing was too soon, but I have not received any written correspondence. With that, I am recommending that your Planning Commission provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors based on the findings contained in the staff report and supported by the analysis in the mitigated negative declaration and subject to conditions of approval. So first, staff is requesting that you recommend that the Board of Supervisors adopt the mitigated negative declaration and erratum thereto prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, including adoption of the Mitigation Monitoring Reporting Program. The second is to adopt a resolution to amend the Granite Bay Community Plan land use designation of the site from low-density residential, 0.4 to 0.9 dwelling units per acre, to commercial. Adopt an ordinance to rezone the site from residential single-family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, to office professional, combining design scenic corridor. And 4, approve the proposed design site review agreement. With that, I conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Callie. We'll start with questions from staff, and then I can bring up the applicant. Richard?
You answered this question in your presentation, but I just wanted to verify that with the amendments to the Granite Bay Community Plan, that it will be unnecessary to have a tentative map and use permit because these are two separate parcels, and the proposal is, I guess, in keeping with the zoning, so it would be a zoning by right or construction by right.
So yeah, let me flip back. So it's not that there's changes to the community plan that is necessitating, or not necessitating, but that's not the reason for the elimination of the tentative map. It's because there's already 2 parcels existing. And so they would just be simply placing each building on each parcel. So they're not proposing to further subdivide the lots any further. And you are correct. If the rezone is approved and is changed to office professional, there is no use permit requirement because offices are allowed by right in that zone district. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that for everybody and myself too. Thank you.
Question regarding the ethereal stream. How's that being handled? Is that undergrounded through the parking lot?
That's my understanding, that it would go into an underground detention basin.
And then number 2 for Clayton. I work in other communities where the attorneys have found any loss of residential has to be replaced by additional residential. So I just want to confirm that you're comfortable with this interpretation of state law.
Yes, and part of it does depend on whether or not the entity has an approved housing plan.
Okay.
And in our case, we do. So then that makes the requirements a little bit different.
Okay, thank you.
Callie, recently I've been pretty tough on you when you stand in front of that podium, but it's because you bring, tough projects to us, and I just want you to know that that was really a phenomenal briefing as far as I'm concerned. You really covered all the bases very, very well, and I appreciate that a lot. Very factually presented. I didn't sense any, viewpoints being infused into it, so I thought it was really well done. A couple of questions, I guess. This did not go to the MAC, correct? So this particular proposal has not been considered by the community, and so what we'll hear today is perhaps, our only real sense for what the community might feel about this particular proposal. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was a drainage discussion to a small degree in here, but my supervisor had a question about it, so I thought I would ask it and get on the record. And this may be an engineering issue you may be unable to answer, I don't know, but there's and it's a little bit of a disrepair drainage that goes underneath the Douglas. So it's a fairly significant project if it needed modification. Do you have any sense for how this particular project might affect that drainage?
I'll refer to my colleague Candace Bartlett in the Engineering and Surveying Division for an engineer answer on that.
Hi, so the project is proposing to not increase flows from the project site, so they're not going to negatively impact the downstream facilities. So they won't have to improve that culvert that goes under Douglas.
Okay. And what's what, in your estimation, what is the condition of that? Is that something that needs to be repaired shortly?
I do not know off the top of my head. They will not be required to analyze that facility with their improvement plans since they are not increasing any flows leaving the site.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you for that. Let's see, one other thing, I think. And this isn't really an engineering question. I think it's slide 40, perhaps. Callie, could you describe the setbacks that exist across Berg already in existence? I think 40 may help there.
So the existing setback on Berg, this is
Perhaps
slide
it's not the best
40.
one, but that may not be the best one. But I'm just curious about the rest of that road over in the relatively near vicinity.
So setbacks are dependent on the zoning as well as the community plan. You know, I had an exhibit in the staff report that shows the existing setbacks on Douglas Boulevard. That is going to be on page, just a moment here, on page 15 of the staff report packet. It shows the parcels that are located on the north side of Douglas Boulevard. This particular site, the current zoning is residential single family with a combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet. And that setback from the front is 20 feet. So if a home were to be proposed here, it would have to comply with that setback. But the setbacks vary on Douglas depending on what the use is, what the zoning is. Also when it was constructed, because this particular requirement in the Granite Bay Community Plan was not established until 2012. So any development that occurred prior to then would likely have a different setback than what's identified in the community plan.
Okay, but the 35 and the 47, I think, that's really not inconsistent with what we see along Douglas across Bergen, correct?
Correct. Across Berg, those buildings also received a setback reduction, and they range 20 to 28 feet from the edge of easement. But from the back of sidewalk, it's more like 40 to 50 feet.
Okay. Thanks very much.
I have some question. I have another question probably for engineering. When you said it wouldn't impact the drainage, if there's more pavement on the property and that water is not going to be absorbed into the soil on a heavy rainy day, where's that water going to go?
They're providing on-site detention under the parking lot.
And how much would that be?
Yes, and vegetated swales. So the off-site drainage coming from the north will be piped under the project so it doesn't interfere with the on-site drainage.
Okay.
Then all the on-site drainage will go to the vegetated swales and the underground detention facility.
Okay, great. Thank you. Also, I was looking on the maps on my phone, and it looks like there's a house behind this project. What is the setback for that house? And as far as, maybe I just didn't hear you say that. And is that where the 6-foot fence has to go or taller to keep the residents separated from commercial if it's changed over?
So the setbacks for that property, it's zoned residential single family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, which is important to note because the setbacks are dependent on that combining number. So for example, if it's a combining 10, it has different setbacks. So a combining 20 would be 20 feet from the front. I don't recall off the top of my head what the side setbacks are. And I don't know when that home was constructed, but I would assume that it complies with the setbacks of the zone district. The retaining wall would be on the subject property, and it would be within the setback. But it is, the zoning ordinance does require a minimum 6-foot tall wall or fence between properties that are not commercial if they're adjacent, for properties that aren't residential when they are adjacent to residential.
So with a minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, currently it sits only 4 homes could be built on those 2 parcels?
So there's 2 parcels, so you could do 2 single-family dwellings, and then you could do ADUs. That's what's allowed there right now per the zoning.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.
Commissioner Dahlgren, anything?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay, Thank you, Callie. Is anyone here from RFE Engineering or Fit Family Development that'd like to share or add?
I think she did a great job.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna open up to public comment at this time. And so, if you are interested in speaking, come on up, public comment, state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Sure, my name is Narendra Patipati. I'm a resident of Granite Bay. We reside on Via Melana Court. Good afternoon, everyone. Certainly, we have a serious concern about this project. The way we look at it is nothing has changed compared to what was presented. There is no material change. It was instead of 4 buildings, it's 2 buildings, it's optical change. But if you look at the square footage, instead of 13,706, it's 13,650, 56 square foot. Is it a change? And similarly, in terms of the trees, instead of cutting down 117 trees, including 72 oak trees, so I don't think there's any change. That's the reason I think the developer elected not even take it back to the MAC. So we have a concern because we have the same concerns we express in terms of the traffic, in terms of the safety of pedestrians, the noise pollution, air pollution, visual impact, and even in terms of environmental impact. And Kelly cited about some of the traffic studies. Out of those 5 years, 2.5 years were impacted by COVID. The study done in 2021, the traffic was impacted. The traffic today is different than it was before. So the concerns are intact. Nothing has changed, so we have a concern. Number 2 is in terms of the commercial buildings. If you look at nationwide, you have good backgrounds. Nationwide, the occupancy or the vacancy is pretty high. The vacancy is like almost 40 to 45% vacancy rate, and it's not an exception. So we don't understand why to build more commercial property. If you look across the street on the Berg Street, there are 3 buildings that are built that are sitting vacant, and across on the other side of Douglas, it is sitting vacant. So what are we doing, building more, when we have a shortage of like a residential property? And if you look on the Douglas Boulevard, other residential projects are coming. So this can be used for that purpose and preserve the pristinity of the Granite Bay community. So we don't understand. And the other one, this is not a major item and might not impact. In fact, I consulted the council. This property was marketed as a commercial property when it's a residential. So is that a misrepresentation? Is it illegal? Granted, council told it's outside his scope. So is this a proper way of handling marketing this property? Maybe it's being presumptuous, thinking, no, you're all going to rubber stamp this project. I don't know. I leave it to you. But as I said, we have a concern, and we hope the Planning Commission turns this project down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Steve Lamson. I'm a resident on Via Milano Court, just north of the subject site. I have 3 concerns I'd like to talk to you about. One is the noise study that was done. It was updated in 2020, and I'm concerned about the adequacy of that report, given if it was during the shutdown period, everyone knows the traffic was dramatically lower. And I think that at a minimum, there ought to be a consideration to have that study updated to make sure that whatever the noise considerations that were in the proposal are adequate. I think there's a potential that they may not be. That's a concern to me. My second concern is really the potential for an accident on Berg Street, not right at the intersection, but if you are going westbound on Douglas, you're in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. You're turning onto Berg, which is a northbound under the proposal, at least as far as I can tell, is still a 1-lane road. Shortly thereafter, you're going to interact traffic that's going to be turning left into the subject site, the office buildings. I'm afraid there might be a backup there, and you're going to end up with serious rear-enders because people tend to make that turn off Berg because you have people going 55 miles an hour behind you and no right-hand turn lane on Douglas, and there's a big potential for an accident, in my opinion. So that, I know there's been a traffic study, but when I listen to it, I haven't heard that potential really being addressed by the traffic engineers. Lastly, I have a concern at the last meeting, no one's really demonstrated the need for this particular office building by doing a survey and saying, there is going to be a need, et cetera, et cetera. And also the MAC has not approved it. My personal opinion is that zoning changes should be really, really carefully considered if there's, should only really be considered if there's an absolute need and the community supports it. It's not that I'm against all zoning changes, I just think in this case, it doesn't look like there's a support for a need for the zoning changes. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aslam Godil. I'm also a resident of Via Milano Court. I have been living in Granite Bay for almost 20 years, and so I've seen that pocket of Douglas, Berg, Olive Ranch area, how it has developed and how the traffic has increased. I want to second all the concerns that Narendra and Steve has brought up. So there's not a lot more to add, but I would say that living in Granite Bay, having my kids go to the schools there, I think the community should know about this project, and hearing what the MAC said twice should be taken seriously. And if there's question, maybe the MAC should look at this one more time. Because I think those are the people who live there, those are the people who will be impacted by this project, and I think we should hear their voice. I want to second what Steve said about the traffic. I drive on Douglas and make a right on Burke all the time, and it's an extremely difficult turn with cars coming at 55, 60 miles an hour behind you. As soon as you make a turn now, you have to decide you want to go into the offices on the right, the new 3 buildings, which are not even occupied, or this building that is being proposed with no turning lanes. So I think the MAC should actually personally visit that site, do a good new traffic survey there or study, because I think it's a matter of a year or 2 or 3 when everything is widely open and the COVID restrictions are completely eliminated and people are working in offices, the impact would be very huge. And I think that's a very, very important thing to consider. The vacancy rates are so high in commercial property, and they're saying the next 5 years it's going to get worse. So shouldn't we look at the need of another commercial property? Is it necessary? And how will that benefit the community? So I wish and I hope that all these things are taken into consideration before proposing this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here in person? Online? Let's give a second for online people to raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Richard brought something up, and I just wanted to hear it again with regard to, now it was a larger project, not necessarily in square footage of the building, but in 4 buildings, and it was a parcel map, and now it's just 2 lots with 2 buildings on it. And right now the property is zoned residential or office. Is that what I heard?
The current zoning of the property is residential single family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet. They're proposing to change the zoning designation from that to office professional with a combining design scenic corridor.
That's what I thought I heard, and then Commissioner Johnson confused me a little to say they plan construction by right, so it's okay, you don't have to answer that.
She can answer that again.
Can you answer that again, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what it means when something is allowed by right, it means that it's a land use that's permissible in that zone district without additional discretionary permits. So If this site is rezoned to office professional, they would not need a subsequent discretionary permit to, for the construction and operation of those offices.
Provided the rezone is approved.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
just to add to that, they would be required to go through design review, but that's been elevated to your planning commission, so your planning commission can also approve that design site review agreement.
And then, was there a reason why it didn't go back to the MAC again?
This project has been to the MAC on 5 occasions, and at this point, there really wasn't a need to go back to have another recommendation of denial. The applicant has made several good faith efforts to address the concerns that have been heard by the community, and he's done that with his project redesign. So that is why we ultimately decided not to go back to the MAC.
Okay, thank you.
We heard a couple of the public indicating that the Berg is a single lane road. And so I guess, we'd like to know how that was addressed in terms of the ingress and egress.
So 2 traffic studies were submitted and analyzed. I'll let Candace speak to the specifics of the turn lanes.
No.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I noted a couple of the public comments, so I'll try to address the ones that I have written down. I noted the concern for right turn onto Berg Lane and then or Berg Road, and then immediately having to turn left into the parking lot. There is about 100 feet along Berg before you make that left turn into the parking lot, and we do require a 40-foot setback for the first parking stall. So even if you pulled into the parking lot and somebody was backing out, you'd have room to get off of Berg Street, so you wouldn't have a conflict there. The transportation analysis did not identify a need for a left turn lane from Berg into the parking lot. Additionally, collision history did not support the need for a right turn lane from Douglas onto Berg.
Okay, so is Berg Road a one-lane road, or does it have more?
It's one lane in each direction.
No, in each direction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you turn right, there's just one lane. I think the member of the public was just referring to the fact that there's not 2 lanes, so you can pull out to turn left into the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of questions, I suppose. The applicant did not speak, so this is.
I'm willing to if you have questions. I just didn't think I could improve on the presentation.
Right, I understand. I understand. At the last meeting, we also addressed this issue of demand. And I'm just curious about whether that issue, whether you can address, I actually was waiting to see if you would speak. Can you address the issue of demand for this particular project? And you need to come up, yeah.
So on this project, and the reason I keep going forward, there is a demand. There's a doctor who wants his practice in Granite Bay, this location. He's going to build one office building first. The second one he's going to build when his wife moves her practice from UC Davis. And he maintains as much landscaping as possible. It's going to be a great building. He's going to put a lot of money into it. He's a local businessman now, or doctor now. He's a sinus. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, and he's been in escrow with me waiting for this to get rezoned. And that's the only reason I keep going back. I mean, I live in the neighborhood too, and I understand my neighbors are frustrated with all the development. And the reason I don't want to go back to the MAC meeting is every time I've gone back, I've been asked to make a change. I used to have the buildings way in the back, and then granted it was a different MAC. It was 2016. We're going to deny it for now because we'd like to see you move the buildings to the road so we don't have to look at parking lots. And so I've done that. Everybody else got approved around me, and then maybe I didn't go in at the right timing, or maybe I'm just whatever the reason that this one is not being considered with all the changes that I do, every time somebody makes an ask, I try to accommodate it. The road turning right onto Berg is not nearly as bad as if there was a house put there. There's two homes. One home can access Berg Road, but the other home's going to access Douglas. So if they're worried about somebody doing 55 miles an hour and then all of a sudden this person needs to stop and turn right into his home, that's going to be worse than turning right onto Berg Road. But as she pointed out, accidents turning on Berg Road are 4 times lower than for this type of stop, 4 times lower than the nation's average. So it's a safe corner. As far as the trees, and I love all the neighborhoods in our area, but even my neighbors, their trees were all cut down to build their homes. You know, development happens, and a lot of oak trees came down, because I've been in Granite Bay before that development, and I seen all the oak trees that were cut down for that development. I mean, it's part of what happens.
So as the landowner of a residentially zoned parcel, you have obviously evaluated this as a residential, for residential development, and concluded it's not viable. Is that true, and why?
That's true, including, I've had neighbors send me letters and saying, what about apartments there? And first of all, I know that somebody will, if I propose that, somebody else will say, no, apartments are a horrible idea. Why not office? Because it's so quiet, it's so easy. They close at 5 or 6. Somebody's always going to have a complaint with any development, but it does not make sense for homes to be on that location. And that's what's going to happen, is because, but I live in the community as well. I don't want to see apartments go there. I think that's a horrible location for a higher density type of use. Talk about traffic going in and out. I think the most subtle use and non-invasive is office space. And since the doctor wants to buy that location to build his, it's perfect. As far as residential, it's a horrible residential location for single-family dwelling. You're going to pull out on Douglas or pull in off Douglas to get to your home. It's not a good use.
Can you clarify when you say the doctor wants to buy his?
He wants to buy the property. He wants to buy both lots. I'm selling both lots to the doctor. He's going to build the office. So I'm not even building. It's not being built and waiting for somebody to move in and buy it. It's an owner user that's going to buy it.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, maybe? I know I'm
We'll let you
long-winded
know.
when I start talking.
We'll let you know.
Okay.
Lost power. I guess
We're back. We can continue to discuss this project.
As the residential's proposed now and sits now, would they not enter off of Berg? They would have to come off of Douglas? Because there's the residence behind it enters Berg now.
Yes, the two parcels, one fronts just Douglas, and then one is on the corner of Douglas and Berg.
So there's no easement to get around to go back to?
There is no existing easement, so he was
Okay.
correct that it would access directly from Douglas.
Cool, thank you.
Anyone willing to share their thoughts or direction at this point?
I can start. Obviously, this is, my district. I've spent a fairly significant amount of time speaking with my supervisor about this as well. I also take to heart the comments that I heard. I respect all of you, but one of my colleagues mentioned, last meeting, rezoning's a big deal, and it is a big deal, certainly. Like Baseline to some degree, it seems to me that this is a miszoned parcel. Unlike Baseline, I think there is probably, at least in my view anyway, unlike Baseline, there's a legitimate, justifiable community benefit by having these medical facilities in the area. It's more challenging when you make the case for something like a gas station or something like that, like Baseline was. We elected to rezone Baseline, and I think we have a very similar question here because we're being asked to rezone to professional, essentially, and in the case of Baseline, it was to commercial. So I do have a little bit of concern about the traffic, regardless of the kind of mitigation efforts that have been there. I also understand there's community concerns about traffic and a few other things here, but I also see the community need. So I look forward to hearing any other opinions on this, and then when the time comes for a motion, I'm ready to do my vote.
I have a comment or a question, maybe the landowner can answer this question. If it's gonna be medical, obviously he wants to build it for medical, is it going to be, whether you could tell us or not, a surgery center where there's gonna be?
An allergist.
So he's an allergist, so there's gonna be.
I was trying to remember.
Can you come to the podium, please?
Pardon?
Can you come to the podium, please?
The doctor's an allergist, and his wife is a psychiatrist, and she has a practice in Davis, and the second office eventually built will be her office when she leaves the Davis area. But his practice is Granite Bay Allergies, and he's currently not where he wants to be located. He's renting space, and he's anxious to build, and has been.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to get to is how many, in my head, appointments, cars would be traveled in and out of that facility on a daily basis. If it's a surgery center, obviously people are gonna stay there a couple hours. If it's a psychiatrist or allergist, then obviously he's gonna have more than maybe 5-6 patients a day.
Yeah.
Traffic-wise, that's all I'm trying to get to the traffic point of this, that people said there's not a use for this property if there's other vacant facilities, but if it's a build to suit to put his personal practice in, then that's a different story.
Well, as he pointed out to me, he goes, I serve the Granite Bay community. And right now, and he goes, I call it Granite Bay Allergies, but I'm at the top of Sierra College. And so all these people come from Granite Bay. He goes, there's more of a traffic impact, because he knows where his customers are, driving up to the top of Sierra College to his office now than it would be as if he was in the heart of Granite Bay. So he believes he's reducing traffic flow.
Okay.
Commissioner
Yes.
DiMattei, if I would also like to clarify that the zoning ordinance does differentiate between different types of medical uses. There's clinics and laboratories, extended care, and then hospitals. So medical offices are a little different. If this project was proposing something like extended care or something where someone would actually be staying for an extended period of time, then the traffic analysis would have reflected that, but it reflects medical offices.
Okay, thank you. So they can't do procedures there. I mean, obviously he's an allergist, he's not gonna go operate on somebody. Put a screw in somebody's ankle and send them home as an outpatient, right? So extended time would be considered more than 2 or 3 hours, less than 2 or 3 hours?
I don't recall off the top of my head how the zoning ordinance differentiates extended care from, say, like a really long, like root canal. But he's not proposing something where people would be like in beds and require long-term care.
Okay, great, thank you for that. That answers my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate Commissioner Woodward's comments and know how difficult it is to make decisions like this for rezoning. I also agree it's a difficult place to put million-dollar homes on 2 separate lots, that one of them you have to go in off of Douglas Boulevard and the other one off the side street. I know how difficult it is to make that decision because the community wishes it would be something else. I don't think apartments are the answer there, higher density of any way. And I also see the need for medical in our communities, as well as we have a housing shortage. We also have a shortage of doctors and good quality medical offices. I don't know why the properties across the street are vacant. I would have to take a look and see how old are they? Are they conducive to an ear, nose, and throat or allergist type doctor? But I'm willing to support whatever you recommend.
That's an invitation for clarity. So I will provide some. You know, the condition of this lot right now is not very good, frankly. It really does need to be cleaned up. It's basically turned into kind of an election, you know, sign hub, you know, next to a drainage ditch. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is I don't see a use for this in the future unless we do something, you know, basically now. And you know, we took to heart, I think they took to heart anyway, the question I think that several of you had, which was demand. There is a community good with this particular rezone in this case, and it appears as though there is demand here. So my intention, based on the things that I've heard, is to vote yes for this.
Make a motion.
Sure. Can do that.
If I can just share one thought before you do that, thank you for all of your thoughts. I think the first question I was wrestling with is this a rezone? You know, does the rezone need to happen? And what I heard today and what I believe is that a rezone is right. That's the right decision based on what I read, based on what I understand about the property. And so then after that, there's additional decisions I know that not everyone's happy with, but so I agree with a lot of the sentiment that's been shared. So, okay.
All right, so I move that we adopt the mitigated negative declaration, SCH 21682074, and the erratum thereto prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, including adoption of mitigation monitoring reporting program.
If I could, these are recommendations to the board.
My
so
apologies.
This would be a
Okay, so I
recommendation
move that
for
we
that
recommend.
adoption.
I move that we recommend that to the board.
Second.
First and a second, we'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
I further move that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they adopt a resolution to amend the Granite Bay Community Plan land use designation of the site from low-density residential, 0.4 to 0.9 acre minimum, to commercial.
Second.
First and a second, we'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes. Sorry, my daughter's sick at school.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
I further move that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they adopt an ordinance to rezone the site from RS-B-20 residential single-family combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet to OP/DC office professional combining scenic design corridor, and approve the proposed design site review agreement.
Second.
Do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward, second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think there's one more. No?
I think that was all of them. The last motion included the last two items.
Okay. Oh.
I looked over at Clayton and he didn't yell at me.
And just the appeal rights chairman.
So no appeal.
There's
though.
actually no appeal.
No appeal, right?
That's right, thank you. I had to mess up on the last day, right?
I didn't hear your question. In certain zonings.
Thinking.
Okay, we're gonna move on, let's see, to our fifth timed item. County Acres Solar Project Draft Environmental Impact Report. Members of the public may now raise their hands, press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for a public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Jennifer Bios, Supervising Planner, will present on this item. And just so everyone knows, we're gonna take a lunch break after this for about 30 minutes after this presentation, so just so everyone knows. Okay.
And my slides are not advancing here, so I don't know if the computer's frozen. There we go. Okay, thank you. My name's Jennifer Bias, Supervising Planner with Planning Services. Here to briefly present this item. Also with us today and making the bulk of the presentation on this item are Amanda Beck and Amy, and I hope I don't mess up your name, Splitzer, I believe. They are SMUD staff, but I've listed them. This is a public hearing to accept comments on the draft EIR. And before we go into the project, or SMUD presents the project, I just wanted to clarify and give you some background on the process we're in here. We're in environmental review, and CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, defines specific roles during the environmental review process. One is which the lead agency, one is a responsible agency. The lead agency has the primary purpose to carry out the project, and a responsible agency can have some discretion over that process. So this is a situation here where SMUD is actually the lead agency and has prepared the environmental document, and they'll kind of walk through that process. But the county here is a responsible agency that has authority over the project, and so we're participating and cooperating with SMUD on this process with them. And again, what is our role as a responsible agency? I did just want to touch on that. It is included, of course, in the project description. But we will be working on a conditional use permit for the solar generation project that the SMUD is proposing, as well as, again, a general plan amendment and some amendments to the regional university-specific plan. And again, kind of just wanted to set the stage before you receive the presentation and take public comments on this. Again, the lead agency, again, SMUD, is encouraged to hold a public hearing to accept public comments on the draft. As county process, we do that commonly in front of this commission. So we have advised and recommended, and SMUD has agreed to do their public hearing in front of the commission. So you get the opportunity, as well as the citizens in Placer, to hear about this project through the normal channels, which we would typically, as staff, be here talking about the environmental document we have prepared. And again, both SMUD and the county decision makers will be using the environmental document that we're reviewing and talking about today for the decision making, both SMUD staff decision making, as well as, again, the county's discretionary decision making on this project. Again, this meeting is not to review the merits of the project, and I know you'll hear this again repeatedly from the SMUD staff also, but to talk about the adequacy of the environmental document that has been prepared right here. And it's really, again, not an opportunity to debate the merits of the project. So we're here to take comments on the draft EIR. Next slides, we're gonna talk, SMUD's gonna take over the presentation, but before that, I just wanted to see if you had any questions of county staff about the process.
Just real quickly to clarify, and this would be probably with Clayton, but SMUD will be certifying the environmental document, and then we will accept that as we move forward with our decision.
I believe it's a yes, but I see Clayton jumping.
So SMUD will be certifying it, the county will also be certifying it.
So okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to SMUD staff. Thank you.
Good morning. I guess, wait, it's afternoon. Thank you to the Planning Commission for providing this forum to present the results of the draft environmental impact report for the Country Acres Solar Project and to take public comment. Thank you also to Placer County staff for working collaboratively with us for the past year to develop the project and the document. Your input has been essential in establishing a project that Placer County and SMUD can be proud of. So my name is Amanda Beck. I'm a project development manager with SMUD's Power Generation Renewable Development Team, and I'm joined by my colleague Amy Spitzer, an environmental specialist with SMUD's CEQA team. Amy is leading the effort to develop the CEQA document that we're here to talk to you about today. And we have prepared a map of the project for the commission. May we provide that to the clerk? May we provide the maps that we provided to you for the clerk? Can we yes. Sorry. Oh, it's okay. Okay, while you're getting that, I'll just kind of keep talking. Just a little background on SMUD. SMUD is a community-owned, not-for-profit electric utility that services the greater Sacramento region, including parts of Placer County. In 2021, SMUD's Board of Directors approved the most ambitious carbon reduction plan in the nation. Our 2030 zero carbon plan has us on a trajectory to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the region while still providing a reliable, affordable service to our customers and our regional partners. So unfortunately, we live in one of the most polluted regions in the country, and local asthma rates in children are much higher than the national average. That's why in 2020, the SMUD board adopted a climate emergency declaration and approved our 2030 zero carbon plan in April of 2021. It targets elimination of carbon emissions from SMUD's electrical generation by 2030. So the Country Acres Solar Project is a project planned to provide a key resource to meet the goals of this plan and provides regional benefits. So AIR doesn't know where the county line ends, and the project represents a great partnership between Placer County and Sacramento County to improve air quality in the region. So you may be asking yourself, why is SMUD planning a project in Placer County? So there are several reasons why Placer County in this particular location make for an excellent opportunity, and it's not just the hundreds of local jobs that the project will produce during construction. You may not know this, but SMUD has over 2,300 customers in Placer County and growing. Two important community projects, one that you continued today, the Riola Vineyards project, and a portion of the Placer Vineyards community will be serviced in whole or in part by SMUD. In our effort to ensure the most reliable, balanced, and stable transmission system, it's very important for us to locate generation on the north side of our system. We have an existing partner, Roseville Electric. We have existing transmission lines that extend from Alberta Substation, a key point of interconnection with our partner, Roseville Electric, through the southern portion of Placer County. The Country Acres Solar Project will interconnect to these lines. One of SMUD's key principles for renewable development is to engage local workforce. We see the projects we develop and build as important generators of local economic opportunity, and we support the communities we live and work in. And to that end, we will be working with Placer County staff to develop an MOU to support fire, police, and public protection services that will serve the project in Placer County. We've enjoyed getting engaged in Placer community through organizations like Placer Land Trust, the Roseville, Rockland, and Lincoln Chambers, among others. As you all know, there's a lot of growth happening in western Placer County. This project will provide generation located close to the need, which increases grid stability and reliability. The project has also been thoughtfully designed to allow for that continued expansion, allowing for traffic flow throughout the site. Having generation projects like Country Acres in our region will be even more important as we continue to experience extreme heat events like the one we all experienced this past September. SMUD, Roseville Electric, and other local energy grid operators work in tandem to support all of the customers in our region, particularly in times like we just experienced, to help keep the lights on. SMUD is conscious of the environment and the need to locate, develop, and design sites to avoid sensitive environmental resources. We understand how incredible of an achievement putting in place the Placer County Conservation Plan was and have cited the project in the potential future growth area. We've worked with Placer County staff to develop the project and the EIR to ensure consistency with the PCCP while continuing our practice of early identification of natural resources and avoidance of environmental impact through design. A little bit on the project in detail. So the project site is located on approximately 1,170 acres of land in western Placer County, north of Baseline Road and north of the Placer Vineyards development. Approximately 910 acres on the north side are planned for lease, and the remainder will be purchased by SMUD. The majority of the site will be developed with fixed solar panels. You can see that on those lines, the black hashed lines on the in front of you and on the screen. Those will be where the fixed solar panels will be. And the southern portion of the site will be developed with some solar. You'll see that on the map. Battery energy storage, that's depicted in orange, sort of hashed line on the south side. A substation, a generation substation, that's a little green sort of rectangle in there, and a switch yard, which will interconnect to the transmission line. So SMUD recognizes the importance of agricultural focus of Placer. One of the SMUD's key principles for renewable development is that when we site projects in agricultural areas, we ensure the project is designed to continue agricultural activities, including during operations. So this project, it'll include sheep grazing for vegetation management and planting of pollinator habitat co-located with the generation project to support the adjacent agricultural activities. We plan to begin construction in mid-2023 and complete construction, testing, and commissioning in 2025. Once complete, the project will produce enough power, enough renewable energy to power more than 80,000 homes and provide storage that will allow for the region to have renewable power available when the sun starts to set. That'll be a big help in the evening when the next big heat wave comes and it's still in the 90s at 7 p.m. So thank you for your time. I'm going to turn the rest of this presentation over to my colleague, Amy Spitzer, to talk to you about the draft EIR.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you to the Planning Commission. So you saw a similar version to this slide when Jen stood here and spoke to you just a little bit ago, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. As she said, SMUD is the CEQA lead agency, and we've been working cooperatively with Placer County as a responsible agency for the past year on developing the draft EIR. Placer County offered to host the draft EIR public meeting at this Planning Commission session per their CEQA policy, as the SMUD Board of Directors, the County Planning Commission, and the County Board of Supervisors will all be considering the final EIR. The purpose of this meeting, as Jen said, is to review the draft EIR and take public comments, and is not an opportunity to discuss the merits of the project, as that will occur during the project entitlement hearings. So we noticed this project via the notice of availability because the project is large and located in a rural area. SMUD extended the notification radius to include all properties located within half a mile of a project boundary. In addition, everyone who commented on the notice of preparation was sent a hard copy of the notice of availability, or was sent the notice of availability either through hard copy or via email. The draft is available for review online at SMUD's CEQA website, smud.org/CEQA. And hard copies of the draft have been made available for review at the Roseville Public Library at 2 SMUD locations, the Placer County Community Development Resource Agency, and the notice of availability was filed with the Placer County Clerk. The notice of availability was also sent to state and federal agencies and local tribes, public agencies including the local school and fire district, and other interested county departments. A notice was also published in the Sacramento Bee and several smaller regional newspapers, local newspapers. This slide is showing some pictures of the project site. The current topography within the project site is relatively flat with an elevation of around 50 to 80 feet above sea level. Local land use, the vast majority of it, includes almond orchard, agricultural rice fields, and actively grazed cattle pasture. There's a very small amount of natural habitat in the project site, about 60 acres that includes some annual grassland and riparian areas surrounding Curry Creek, which has been channelized. A little bit of history of the draft environmental impact report. We published the notice of preparation on November 19th, 2021, and had a public scoping period of November 19th through December 21st, 2021. We held a public scoping meeting on December 8th, 2021, and published the draft EIR for public comment on September 13th, and that will end on October 28th. So during the public scoping period, we were able to scope out a few issues where we did not anticipate any impacts. These areas were analyzed in the EIR, but briefly. These resource areas that we did not anticipate any impacts to are energy, mineral resources, population and housing, recreation, and utilities and service systems. These EIR issue areas, including aesthetics, agricultural, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, energy, biological resources, tribal cultural resources, hazards and hazardous materials, geology and soils, water and hydrology, land use and planning, noise, public services, transportation and circulation, and wildfire were more thoroughly analyzed in the draft. Nearly all environmental impacts are less than significant, and most potentially significant impacts can be reduced to less than significant through proposed mitigation measures. As you can see on this list, no mitigation measures are required for these resource areas, including aesthetics, greenhouse gas emissions, population and housing, and wildfire, among all the others listed here. Potentially significant impacts that required mitigation measures include those that you see here on this list. And some of the mitigation measures that we are proposing or that will be required are construction best practices for air quality, such as fugitive dust control measures. The biological resources section impacted or evaluated impacts on all PCCP covered species, and mitigation measures are fairly consistent with those in the Placer County Conservation Program and include pre-construction surveys, construction best practices, biological monitors, and compensatory mitigation through an approved mitigation bank or in lieu fee program. While no cultural resources were identified in the project area, incidental discovery is possible on any project, so we included these measures in the cultural resources section. Noise and transportation measures include construction best practices such as following the county noise ordinance and limiting construction traffic during peak hours. No tribal cultural resources have been identified in the project area through AB 52 consultation, but local tribes have requested spot monitoring in areas of heavy grading and other incidental discovery protocols. Two impacts were determined to be significant and unavoidable, even with implementation of the recommended mitigation measures. Implementation of the proposed project would convert approximately 900 acres of important farmland, including farmland of statewide importance and unique farmland, to non-agricultural uses, even with sheep grazing and pollinator habitat proposed. The project would mitigate for the loss of this farmland by acquiring an agricultural conservation easement or paying an in lieu fee at a 1-to-1 ratio. But even with this mitigation implemented, the proposed project would not reduce this significant impact, and the impact would remain significant and unavoidable. The EIR also determined that implementation of the proposed project would conflict with or obstruct implementation of the applicable air quality plan and result in cumulatively considerable net increases in criteria pollutants during construction only. Even with mitigation implemented, including fugitive dust measures, the proposed project would not reduce this significant impact, and the impact would remain significant and unavoidable. The SEQRA required alternatives analysis in the draft EIR includes a no project alternative, a wetland impact reduction alternative, and a farmland impact reduction alternative, which I will discuss in greater detail on the following slides. In the wetland impact reduction alternative, the 2 grassland parcels in the northwest portion of the project area would be eliminated. This would reduce the generation capacity of the project by about 16 megawatts and avoid impacts to cattail marsh and grassland foraging habitat in the area. The farmland impact reduction alternative considered eliminating approximately 45 acres of farmland, which would result in a reduced generation capacity similar to the wetland impact reduction alternative. SEQRA requires that an environmentally superior alternative be identified. The no project alternative would be considered the environmentally superior alternative, as there would be no adverse environmental effects under this alternative. However, it would not achieve any of the project objectives or help SMUD comply with California's renewable energy and greenhouse gas emission reduction goals and laws, or SMUD's 2030 zero carbon plan. Wetland impact reduction alternative would result in fewer impacts to biological resources and hydrology and water quality, but similar impacts to all other resource areas as the proposed project. While this alternative meets most of the project objectives, a reduced size solar facility would produce a smaller amount of energy at a higher price because construction and operations costs would remain approximately the same, while power generation would be lower, resulting in a less efficient project. The important farmland reduction alternative would result in fewer impacts to hydrology and water quality, while impacts to agricultural resources would remain significant. Similar to the wetland reduction alternative, this alternative meets most of the project objectives, but it would produce a smaller amount of energy at a higher price and would result in a reduced ability to comply with California's renewable energy and greenhouse gas emission reduction goals and SMUD's 2030 zero carbon plan. Today's Planning Commission hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide comments on the draft environmental impact report. The 45-day comment period ends at 5 p.m. on October 28th. Any person who submits a written or oral comment on the draft will receive a formal response to their comments and a copy of the final EIR. SMUD, the County Planning Commission, and the County Board of Supervisors will all have additional public hearings or public comment next year in Q1 or Q2. Comments may be submitted in writing and addressed to SMUD's Environmental Services Department, attention me, Amy Spitzer, via email at countryacres@smud.org, and additional project information can be obtained at our project website, smud.org/countryacres. And with that, I will conclude our presentation.
All right, thank you. Questions from commissioners?
I have a question. Thank you for that presentation. On your cultural resources, is agriculture not considered a cultural resource, considering that you're taking out rice ground and almond ground, and we provide 90% of the world's almonds right here in this region, and probably 75% of America's sushi rice from this region, and there's already a shortage of both these commodities due to weather conditions, and now you propose to take out 1,700 acres, I think, 1,170 acres of production farmland. Is that not considered a reduction and cultural resources?
That is a very good question. Jody, I'll look to you. Is that something that is agricultural usually considered?
Hi, I'm Jody Fessler with AECOM. We're consultants to SMUD and help prepare the draft environmental impact report. So agriculture is not considered a cultural resource. It is its own subject area, and we did look at the impacts to agriculture. The area that the proposed project is planned is considered the future growth area under the PCCP. So that area is kind of designated as potentially set for development and residential in the future.
Okay. Also a question on the lifespan of all these solar panels. What kind of impact does it do to the environment when they have to be replaced?
So it's a good question. So solar panels have about a lifespan of 30 years. This project, it's a power purchase agreement. The intent would be to build a project planned for a 30-year project. And we have decommissioning planned at the end of the project lifespan. So that land can, we're leasing the property, as I noted in the beginning, the majority of it. So the majority of the solar panels, about 900 of those acres, could, when it's decommissioned, the obligation is to remove all of the panels, all of the structures, all of the underground conduit, remove all of that, and it goes back to the landowner. So at that time, it could, it could be converted to whatever the landowner chooses, whether it goes back to agricultural use. One of the, as I talked about, by continuing sort of a sheep grazing and continuing activities on the site that have agricultural activities in mind, it's in what we've seen is that helps the biodiversity in the soils of the property. So it can really help, further on if there's ag desired. There's also a, one of the things that we're planning with the landowner is to keep the water wells that are on the site, keep those in place, not remove them, keep them active, so that the water can be used later on if the landowner so chooses to do agricultural activities on it.
Okay. In the environmental impact report, is it going to show what the impact is to dispose of these 900 panels 30 years from now? Because I don't think I'll be sitting here 30 years from now. And we're going to have to pass this on to somebody else, or are we going to ship these to another country and put that burden on their lap? Because we already have a problem with trying to get rid of solar panels now. So is that not a bigger impact than what we're observing now with air quality?
So I'll take the air quality question maybe separate and ask you kind of a clarifying question about that. But so modules, the disposal of modules is covered in the CEQA document in the hazards and hazardous materials section. So CEQA's, so these panels are considered a universal waste under the Department of Toxic Substances Control Act rules. So there's rules and regulations in how you remove them and dispose of them. So I talked a little bit about our key principles for development. Another of our key principles for development is that for the whole of our equipment and during construction and operation, we really press our constructors and our operators to ensure that there's recycling in place where recycling facilities are available for that equipment. So, if a panel breaks, we at the beginning of the project, before we move forward with a constructor, we want plans in place for how they would recycle those facilities in accordance with the DTSC requirements. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, I guess I threw air quality because it looks like we're just trading one environmental problem for another one with putting something on the ground that now has to be disposed of in the ground or in a factory somewhere that's going to, I know this is a bigger solution, just than a bigger maybe impact than just Placer County. It's just something I was asking about, because as a farmer, I want to preserve as much ag land as possible, because I think we need to feed people before we need to figure out whether their lights come on or not. And so that's, I guess my questions are kind of veered towards that. So, but thank you for that answer.
Yeah, I understand the concern. And it is why we chose the potential future growth area, because we knew that Placer County had made a decision to move forward with development in this area.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Thank you. But we are still trying, and I've talked to the ag commissioner, and we're still trying to preserve as much ag as possible, because food costs are going up, and the more property we take out of production, the higher it's gonna cost everybody else to go buy more food and provide for their families. So we're trying to keep that at a minimum, if possible. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, I think, well, you answered one of my questions already. I was going to ask you about the Placer County Conservation Plan, but I think you answered that. It's outside of that special zone. Okay, I see there's some work planned in the regional university area. And is that going to require that the specific plan for the regional university needs to be modified?
So, Dan's not here anymore, but we do expect to, you want to speak to the entitlement?
Yeah, so you guys have your map of the project area. There are some panels proposed on the south side of the university property. And within that area, the specific plan requires a master plan for development on that property. So we will be modifying the specific plan to allow an exception for this project, because the university user that currently owns the property isn't moving forward at this time with the master plan, but this project would be allowed to be considered under its own entitlements. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, I guess just a question. It seems that the impacts on the university project with having these panels next door might be something to consider.
Yeah, I definitely think the property owners are looking at that, but they're working with SMUD right now to lease them the property. So I think they've taken into account.
Okay. And I think, I was wondering what an ag easement is, but apparently the SMUD is going to get an easement for their panels, but the property owners will still own the property. Is that correct? That's what I'm interpreting?
That's right. So for those 900 acres on the north side of the project site, that is those will all be leased. So, we'll have, and that's from two separate landowners. One of those landowners, as Jen mentioned, is the current landowner of the regional university specific plan area. I know we're not supposed to talk about merits, but it's a good use. We've been partnering with them so that, it becomes a long-term funding source through that lease to help them get the project for the campus off the ground and continue.
Okay, so that replaces their income off of it now.
Yeah, the two parcels that we're looking at with them are really properties that they hadn't intended to develop with the campus. Yeah. So they're north of that.
Okay. Let me see, and then I noticed that wildfire is not an issue, and I'm sure you're going to handle it somehow, but I can visualize this green grass underneath the panels that dries out and becomes very volatile in the summertime. If you get a wildfire in there, that's going to affect the panels somehow, I would think. So I don't know. I guess what I'm asking is, wildfire could be an issue if it's not mitigated, it seems like, in terms of just the infrastructure that you're putting in.
Yeah, I can speak to you about design. It's a key consideration on any generation project when you begin development and design and operations. You're thinking, one of the first organizations we go to in development is to the local fire department. So we've been in touch with Placer County Fire, with the chief and the assistant chief, to make sure that we're designing the project with the appropriate setbacks, so that they and with the ability to get equipment in there in the event that we were to have an incident. So that's one piece. The other is just designing a project so that you have appropriate separation distances between the pieces of equipment, so there's not propagation within the facility of fire. And, you know, sheep are pretty fantastic grazers. Over time, that grazing plan will have to be modified. We'll have to be looking at that on a regular basis so that we ensure that we're keeping that vegetation down. Is what I've seen on projects is you get sheep on the project, and then the vegetation grows, and then you get more vegetation because you have the sheep there. So there's this, it can be it's a maintenance need to sort of be annually looking at it. But yes, it's important that we are on top of our vegetation management. It's key operational control.
Well, it just occurs to me that might be a mitigation for wildfire that could be addressed in the document that makes it a little bit more firm what the process will be in terms of vegetation management.
Thank you for
That's
the
just a thought.
Thank you for the comment.
I have one more question. With the university structures and everything, can't all these solar panels be mounted on those buildings and not take up agricultural land? Instead of being ground mounted, can't they be building mounted?
So we often get questions about rooftop versus ground mount. The SMUD, our 2030 zero carbon plan, it has both included, both ground mount and rooftop planned as part of the plan. You don't get quite the density of generation that you do on a rooftop as you do on the ground. So I think, we take a very thoughtful approach when we're looking at utility scale and on the ground. But it's, it is a concern that people regularly raise about solar.
Because the ground is currently, from what I was told, currently in production with almonds and with rice. Not all of it because of the drought, I believe. I'm not sure how many acres were taken out. But again, if we're taking land away from food, I'd rather have some emissions than not have any food for the people of this community. So I guess that's why I'm asking, we put it on top. Is it, whether it's efficient or not, you're gonna have, I'm sure, some pluses and minuses to it. But again, you're taking more production out of people's food sources. So that's all. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other? Commissioner Dahlgren, do you have any comments? I just want to make sure I give you a chance. Okay, you were muted. I think maybe.
I'm sorry, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity. I don't have any questions.
Okay, I'm going to open up to public comment, and then we can come back if we need to. So anyone here in the audience wish to speak on this? Anyone online? Oh, we do. Okay. Yes.
Good day, Commissioners. Mike Garabedian of Placer County Tomorrow. I don't know how much time I have to raise some points, but I'll do what I can. First of all, the report you have for the public and yourselves, and the presentation both neglect to show where the habitat, wetland, and other loss areas are. I have not had the benefit of looking at the environmental documents, so you think we'd at least have something about that so we can see vernal pools, waterways, habitats, and so forth. A question I have is if there is any project land in the Williamson Act. It'd be good to know where the power line shown, the SMUD power line, where that power is generated. Now the project has 900 to 1,100 acres affected in about a 2 square miles of land directly affected, but it actually affects an area 3 miles, a little over 3 miles north and south, and over 2 miles east and west. It's fragment. It's hard to see how you could design a project without with less fragmentation of agriculture in the land. It's really a massive project of 5 square miles or so, directly affected. And there's description of that. Now, changing the general plan to allow solar electric impacts in wet areas is a pretty bad idea. This suggests that SMUD doesn't respect natural resources and habitat to the extent, I would say overall, probably the single most critical thing I could point out that SMUD should understand that by coming to Placer County, it is exposing itself to a lower standard of conservation, agricultural, environmental protection than it may be used to elsewhere. And the prime example of that is the Placer County Conservation Plan. As soon as they say they're relying on that, the PCCP is a 450 square mile area. They probably know that, and the core of it is slated for complete destruction, just wiping it out with in lieu fees and so forth. By comparison, SMUD may be more familiar, say, with the South Sacramento Conservation Plan area, which has a much greater number of protected species than this county does. Just by way of introduction to that area. Let's see, the unavoidable significant impact to farm and statewide important land is a major. And we don't know what other areas, there doesn't seem to be any attention to what other places might generate the electricity to serve this area if it is developed in the future. That could be, it's as if this was the only possible source. The report does say there are substantial adverse effects on habitat, fish and wildlife, wetlands and so forth, but the mitigation, the areas they're talking about are not.
Mr. Garabedian, your time is up. I don't know if you can see the timer, but your time is up.
Well, let me point out that if there's no one speaking here and you're cutting me off at this point, you could use your discretion to allow some points. This is my first exposure to this, and if this is a meeting they're having in lieu of anything they've done anywhere else, that I would say that it's not a very good representation of Placer County involvement of the public if you're cutting off the lone person who has anything to say. Hopefully there will be others. I mean, I respect your decision. That's your decision to make. I just disagree with it.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else online?
No.
Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back to discussion for the commission and more comments. And if staff or if you guys would like to address anything that was shared, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, again, I don't think we're here to address or debate the merits of the project. If there's additional comments, either from the individual commissioners, you can provide those, again, up until October 28th at 5 p.m. to SMUD. Even if you send them to county staff, we will get them to SMUD. But this is just an opportunity to let you and as well as the public know the documents available for public comment.
So even Mr. Garabedian can offer some more written
Absolutely, and
responses
there'll be
provide those to you.
additional opportunities to weigh in on the considerations of this project as it goes through the process.
Great.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Garabedian was talking about the wetland impacts, and
Yeah, that
at
is
least-
in the document, yes.
Yeah, the document, so that's what I wanted to clarify, that
Yes,
I think I heard you say that those are addressed in the document.
Yeah, there are exhibits and tables in the document that show the impacts based on the proposed project. So
Okay.
that information is available.
All right, thank you.
And again, SMUD will be responding to any of the comments that were received here related to the environmental document in the final environmental document that has to be prepared for this project.
I think I heard, I'm glad to know Mr. Garabedian is going to be able to continue the conversation, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from him because he's a steward of our community and making sure, we keep our environment in the position that it's in right now, which is respectable. So hopefully he gets an opportunity to communicate with you any concerns. It sounded to me like he was talking about, we always have mitigation measures. Where's the mitigation bank? Where are you going to mitigate the things to? I think you don't have to answer that for me today. That's something to address to make sure we know where is that gonna be? Is it gonna be in Placer County? Is it gonna be in Sacramento County or Sutter County? Where's it gonna be?
The mitigation measures proposed in the document do specify local mitigation in Placer County. In addition, the project is largely designed to set back from wetlands. If you look at those northwest parcels that are in the vernal pools, they're very oddly shaped, the black hashing that will be the photovoltaic panels. That's all because we've designed 250 foot setbacks from vernal pools. Most of the wetland impacts, they're very, very minimal, and they occur in crossings and connector lines.
Perfect, thanks. And I'm sure you'll be talking with them some more. And then I wanted, Commissioner Johnson mentioned fire protection, and you forgot to mention the sheep, which will be eating the grass, which will help keep it down. I had goats do it at my house. I couldn't be happier. So thank you for a great informative report, and I look forward to seeing more people comment on us doing what we can to have cleaner energy. And I also respect that we are losing some farmland, which is so important to all of us, but we also need energy. So, thanks.
All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation. There's no motion for this, it's informational DEIR. I encourage anyone in the public to provide their comments, to give feedback on that. And we're gonna take a break for lunch.
Yeah, I might suggest maybe we just take if you guys have enough energy, take maybe a 5-minute recess and do the 1 o'clock item. And then break. It's up to you guys though, but that'd be my suggestion.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's just go right in this.
I'm looking at Dan. Okay, okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break and we'll be back. 5 minutes. Okay, everyone, we're gonna get to the next agenda item. So let's. Okay. We are gonna move on to. Okay, we're gonna move on to our 6th timed item, nuisance abatement. Adiego Ventures, Inc. Members of the public may now raise their hands, press *9 for calling in to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Estelle Maxwell, Code Compliance Officer 2, will be presenting on this item.
Before Estelle gets started, I just want to give a quick reminder. This process is a little different when it's a nuisance abatement. I know we've got new commissioners in place, so this is a hearing. The reason it's different is you're going to hear sworn testimony and consider evidence concerning the conditions that cause to abate the nuisance. Any witnesses that testify are going to be placed under oath at the outset. For all witnesses, there's a cross-examination right, both by a code enforcement officer, but also by the property owner if they're present. I don't see them here, so that may not be an issue today. But you are going to be asked to weigh the credibility of any testimony and evidence provided. So that means you're going to be, and I'm reading off the jury instructions for witness credibility here. How well did the witness see, hear, or otherwise sense what the witness described? How well did the witness remember and describe what happened? How did the witness look, act, and speak while testifying? Did the witness have any reason to say something that was not true? For example, did the witness show any bias, prejudice, or have a personal relationship with any parties involved? What was the witness's attitude towards this case about giving testimony? So those are the things you're going to evaluate. The hearing otherwise does not need to be conducted according to the technical rules of evidence, but you should be using your best judgment as to what evidence would be permissible here. And if you have questions along those lines, of course, I'm here for it. So with that as a framework, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Estelle Maxwell, and I'm here to present the nuisance abatement item for the Adiego Adventures, Inc. property located at 775 Hideaway Loop in Alta, California. The property is located approximately 0.5 miles southeast from the intersection of Culberson Road and Hideaway Loop. The parcel is identified as assessor's parcel number 062-060-046-000 and is zoned residential forest, combining building site of a 20-acre minimum. The parcel is 2.3 acres in size. On July 17th of 2018, Code Compliance received multiple complaints regarding people occupying travel trailers on site and storage of multiple inoperative vehicles. July 27th, 2018, a courtesy notice was mailed to the property owner. On August 15th, 2018, an inspection of the property was completed and staff observed the occupancy of a travel trailer as well as excessive accessory storage all over the property. On August 18th, 2018, a notice of violation was mailed to the property owner, regular and certified mail. January 3rd, 2019, an inspection of the property revealed continued occupancy of a travel trailer, new construction of a storage shed attached to a cargo or box trailer, illegal electrical wiring, and excessive storage throughout the property. On February 1st, 2019, a revised notice of violation capturing the existing and new violations that staff observed from the inspection was mailed out regular and certified mail to the property owner. On March 5th, the final notice of violation was issued to the property owner. March 18th, an inspection was done from a neighboring property and staff observed the ongoing violations on the property. On March 19th, 2019, an administrative citation was issued to the property owner for the incidental camping and storage on the property without a principal use, unlawful sewage disposal, and building permits required. April 17th, 2019, Placer County administrative hearing was held and the case was heard regarding the ongoing violations. On April 29th, 2019, the administrative hearing officer's order was issued and the property owner was ordered to cease the permanent occupancy of the property and remove all vehicles that are not stored in accordance with the Placer County zoning ordinance, regulations, and remove all other storage from the property and submit an application for the after-effect building permit within 60 days from the hearing officer's decision. On May 22nd, 2019, the property owner was working with the Planning Division to try to establish a principal use as crop production, but did not follow through with the requirements to do so. February 7th, 2020, inspection of the property from the roadway. Violations continued and were observed from the plain view from the roadway. On March 4th, an inspection was done from the roadway and there were no changes to the site and violations remained. On March 9th, 2020, the second administrative citation was issued to the property owner for incidental camping, storage on the property without principal use, unlawful sewage disposal, and a building permit required. On July 22nd, 2020, Placer County administrative hearing was held and the case was heard regarding the ongoing violations. July 27th, 2020, Placer County administrative hearing officer's decision was issued and the property owner was ordered to create a principal use for the site or remove everything from the parcel and cease all occupancy of the trailers on site. On April 18th, inspection of the property was completed in plain view from the roadway and a notice of nuisance was posted on the property for the ongoing violations and also mailed regular and certified mail to the property owner. On September 7th, there was an September 7th, 2022, inspection of the property was done in plain view from the roadway. The notice of nuisance abatement was posted on the property for the ongoing violations and was also mailed regular and certified mail to the property owner. The violations that are before you are Section 8.24.080, subsection A1, sewage system requirements, the general requirements. No person shall treat or dispose of sewage in any manner other than by an on-site sewage system approved by either the Division of the State of California Regional Water Quality Board, Control Board, having jurisdiction, a public sewer system, or other method meeting the standards set forth in this article or on the on-site sewage manual. Section 15.04.140, building permit required in the building code. Any owner or authorized agent who intends to construct, enlarge, alter, repair, remove, convert, or replace any electrical, gas, mechanical, or plumbing system, the installation of which is regulated by this code, or to cause any such work to be done, shall first make application to the building official and obtain the required permit. Section 17.56.080, subsection A2, camping and campgrounds, incidental camping, the use of tents, travel trailers, recreational vehicles, or other mobile camping equipment for camping and other recreational purposes incidental to the principal use of a site for some other purpose is subject to the following requirements. Where allowed, incidental camping shall not occur for more than 30 calendar days in any 180 consecutive days. Section 17.56.250, subsection E2B, storage as a principal use. The storage of materials as a principal use is subject to the requirements established by section 17.06030, allowable land uses and permit requirements, and is not allowed in the residential forest zone district until an approved primary use has been established on the property. These are photos of the site conditions from the beginning of the case in 2019. It began as just a travel trailer on site and a cargo container / it was a box trailer more like, and continued through the winter months in April and progressed in March of 2020 where additional inoperable vehicles, generators, and other items were brought to the site and stored. This is a photo also on May 5th of 2020. On the left of the incidental camping continuing and inoperable vehicles on site. The photo to the right shows a photo of the county vehicle in the roadway, and I took photos from the roadway in plain view to witness the storage on site. On September 7th of 2022, I was on site in the roadway and viewed these current violations from the roadway showing excessive accessory storage, the incidental camping continuing, inoperable vehicles, new buildings on top of the travel trailer that was existing. They expanded, added to the cargo container, a sliding glass door, and a new awning, as well as a new storage shed of some sort onto the site and additional storage. Here also is on site it's a plant shed and racking from the Home Depot business, it appears. So they have racking strewn throughout the front setback. And then this is the posting of the notice of nuisance abatement on the site. And the recommendation from staff is to 1, approve the issuance of an abatement order supported by the findings contained in the staff report, and 2, order the abatement pursuant to the conditions contained in the staff report, and 3, to authorize the chair of the Planning Commission to sign the abatement order. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Do you have any
I
questions?
should have mentioned this at the outset, but we'll need everyone that's going to testify today to be under oath. So if we could do that now, and also I think it's worth noting on the record, asking if the property owner is present. If the property owner is not present, then also noting that on the record.
Okay, is the property owner here? Are they on, could they be online? You know, so
Potentially.
So I'll ask if they're online, raise your hand.
No.
Okay, property owner is not here. And so I think I opened the public hearing portion. And
Prior to doing that, I think we should put the code enforcement officers under oath.
Okay.
So
Let's go ahead and do
whoever's
that.
planning on speaking today, I don't know if that's both of you or just Estelle. So, and the clerk would be the one to do that.
Yeah.
Ready?
Okay, I'm ready, yeah.
Okay. This is the nuisance abatement for Adiago Ventures. Anyone giving testimony today on this matter must do so under oath. If you intend to give testimony on this matter, please stand now and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please state, "I do" now.
I do.
No, I would just add to that, also the testimony that you've already provided, can you affirm that that's under oath and is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
It is.
It was.
Thank you.
So we don't have the property owner here, and I think what I can do is open up the public comment portion of this. Does the public also need to do an oath if they want to speak?
So if they're going to provide factual testimony about the circumstances, then yes, they would.
Okay.
But as indicated by the clerk, nobody, I guess, has indicated that they are. So, but you can still accept public comment. People can provide comments otherwise.
I'll move to public comment and see if anyone here in person, anyone online wish to speak on this item. Okay, we'll close public comment and we'll move it to a commission discussion.
Well, I'm familiar with these types of hearings, so maybe I'll ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Attachment number 1, no trespassing sign posting notice was sent March 1st, 2019. And I'm not sure who, it looks like it came from Mr. Adiago, but you've had conversations with him since then about cleaning up and taking care of the issue, correct?
Yes.
And the two of you worked together for him to go through that process to do the corrections?
We had initially worked together, and then he posted the no trespassing sign after he received the, one of the notices that I posted on the property. And then also, I'm not sure it was attached in here, but also sent a letter stating that I was harassing him.
Okay, and since then, since March 1st of 2019, all you've been able to do is be off-site, take pictures, and then post your notice of the violation, and you've had no interaction with Mr. Adiago?
Correct.
Okay. And is it your opinion that the environment is a hazard for health and human safety?
Yes, it is.
And for fire hazard?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're
No more
welcome.
questions.
Since we don't have the property owner here, could you just confirm what you've done to notify him of the meeting today, him or her of the meeting today?
So, I'm sorry, say that again.
Sure. Since we don't have the property owner here, could you just, I guess, state for the commissioners and for the record what you did to notify the property owner of the hearing today?
Sure. So the property was posted with a notice of nuisance abatement order initially, and then again posted on the property, the notice of nuisance abatement order showing the hearing date and where to arrive and make comment if he so chose to. He did not respond to any notices I sent him. He did not call. He has my phone number and my contact information and chose not to make any comment.
Okay. I guess just to go over what's being proposed. Basically, as I read it, Mr. Aviato would have 30 days to bring the property into compliance.
Yes.
And after 30 days, then he kind of loses his ability to do anything, and the county, by right, will be able to go in there and clean it up for him.
Correct. I would get contractors to come in, and I would get 3 separate bids and turn that over to procurement, and then they would identify who the contractor would be, and we would clear the property.
Okay. And then the county will be reimbursed by a lien on the property?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to go along with that time frame, that there would be a separate action needed to actually lien the property. So once you have the contractor do the work, the county gets invoiced for that time, then there would be another public hearing that I believe would go to the board, then the board approves the lien on the property.
Okay.
we can move to a motion here, unless we need more information.
I'll move to approve the issuance of an abatement order supported by the findings contained in the staff report.
Second.
First and a second, roll call vote?
Second, Woodward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move to order abatement pursuant to conditions contained in the staff report.
Second.
First and a second, roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge, second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
And third, I move to authorize the chair of the planning commission to sign the abatement order.
Second.
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
Appeal. The decision of the planning commission may be appealed by anyone who appeared at today's hearing and provided comment, or anyone that submitted written comments on this item. An appeal must be filed within 10 days of today's date and shall be accompanied by a filing fee of $688. All right, that concludes our meeting for today. Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
EJ wants to